Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your co-host, M to Dave, and tonight, or this morning, or this afternoon, whenever you may be watching this, we have the full crew. MK Tom Brady's here, as well as MK Rio. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. What's up,
Doing great.
everybody? This is
So,
episode
Tom,
60.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to do like quick. This is episode 60, and we were gonna have a guest on tonight, but they couldn't make it last second, so we're gonna reschedule that for another time. But we figured since we're all here and it's kind of rare for us three to come together, usually because we have different schedules, we might as well do an episode.
I was talking to Tom on the phone earlier. He mentioned an interesting topic that I feel like should be discussed. Tom, do you want to give the context, please?
Yeah, so basically, we talk about it in the Mortal Kombat sense, but I think every fighting game community does it. And I think it's not just a problem with fighting games, it's a problem with every game in general because so gamers have changed because we live in an era now where you don't really have to wait on anything. Everything is instant. You can get everything delivered to your house from Amazon or wherever within 24 hours sometimes, or even sometimes same day. Everything is on demand. It's not really the old days of cable and you got to do, you know, TiVo, your favorite TV show or whatever, or DVR, right? Everything is available right there through streaming services. People binge watch. Usually a series gets released all at once and you can binge watch all the episodes more times than not, no waiting until next week or whatever. It's all right there. So technology has made like everything like instant gratification, and there's more things than ever vying for our attention with how big social media is and all the streaming services and music services and all the games that are out now. Steam, PlayStation, everything is kind of right there. You can download stuff right to your system. You don't have to go to the game store like in the old days. And I feel like developers don't really are a little confused because they're still following a blueprint that has been wildly successful for forever. And I don't think they know what to do anymore because it's like, I don't know that there's a right answer. And here's what I mean by that. Let's talk about a genre that just to show that it's not just fighting games dealing with this, that has nothing to do with a fighting game. The genre, ARPG genre. If you listen to any popular ARPG streamer or YouTuber, they all reference kind of the same problem, and same problems. And it seems like uh, it sounds a lot like I was in Discord the other day with them. Like they sound like fighting game players, like how we talk about, like, oh, players today, they don't want this, they don't want that, everything has to be easy or whatever. So, like, let's take a very successful game. And most people listening to this weren't around back then, but Diablo 2, very successful. And back then you would have this long grind. Um, Anyone familiar with the game, you could literally complete the game with a Blizzard Sorcerer, Spirit Sword, Spirit Shield, which are not too hard to acquire. And you don't need any of this end game gear, and you've already beaten the game. But people played it for like a decade or longer, even though there are still some like Mr. Llama that still play it to this day, pretty hardcore. Um, and the truth is that that day of like, oh, I'm just going to grind all day for that perfect gear, for the holy grail, for the loot hunt, that, that loot hunt formula doesn't work today because what people want today is, hey, again, just talking ARPG, and then I'll relate to fighting games. Hey, campaign, how can I get through it a little quicker? How can I then my leveling process be faster? How can I get to the end game faster? And then is there a way that you can speed up how I can get the end game gear and then complete XYZ? And then it's, oh, hey, I'm all done. When's the next content coming out? And it didn't used to be this way. And like developers don't know what to do. Like, are these games that used to be about the loot hunt? You make a game like that, nobody wants to do it. Long leveling process that used to be fun because nope, no one wants to do that. And fighting games are the same way. You make a fighting game that's too defensive, nobody likes it. Too offensive, nobody likes it. A mix of both, still nobody likes it because, well, I don't want to have to deal with this zoning or this defense or this mix or etc. Instant gratification is so part of the era that in fighting games, like any other game, how do I get to that part quicker, right? How do I learn the game faster? Can you make the game a little more accessible for me so that the offense is easier, this is easier, that's easier. Um, Rio, who brought up, anti-airs, right? Now instead of anti-airing, you just hit up and block. And I'm not hitting jab out of the air isn't any harder per se or easier, but I mean, like, it's all very much like everything has changed. Gamers have changed, and I don't know that developers don't know what to do, or there just is no answer for it, and we're demanding an answer that just doesn't exist.
In a way, gamers have kind of become more lazy, I guess. They want more of a relaxing experience. They don't want to work when they play a game.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like, again, there's so much vying for your attention right now, right? What is the motivation to sit there and grind a game that's going to have, like a fighting game, let's say a high execution barrier or a high skill ceiling? There really are no skill gap closers, like a bunch of 50-50s that are, again, pretty easy to do. 50-50s are, once you get that situation, it's pretty much, I have a 50% chance of hitting you, even if I'm like the worst player and you're the best player. Doesn't mean you'll win the match, but again, it just simplifies everything down to a 50-50 or a safe mix, or some kind of set play situation, right? Or one hit leads to momentum. You know what I mean? Something Charney said the other day that actually does make sense. He said players today, they feel like they're entitled to momentum just because they hit you with anything. And they kind of want everything to lead to, now shit rolls down here. Here's my situation. Got to guess, got mixed, game over. And whether it's a fighting game or a different type of game, like I remember when I was when PL was in CGS and I was there with him, and they chose Counter Strike CS. My source, I mean, it was, and they just didn't like it. They were like, "Oh, it's the easier version." And so whether it's that aspect of, like, in a shooting game or the way ARPGs are or fighting games today, I think every genre is feeling it. And I don't know developers, they know what to do because the old formula doesn't work. And I don't know that there's a new formula that does.
What do you think, Dave? Dave, your mic might be muted.
Yeah, Dave's muted.
Oh, sorry. Well, I already kind of discussed it with Tom. I'm more curious what you have to say. What do you think? As far as I know, it's I think it kind of, I guess it's a reference to what Tom is kind of reference. I know some people don't play the games that Tom might be a reference, which is obviously fine. But I think it goes into. I think the point is, I guess the simplification, the ever changing gamer base, right, is different. Like what our generation is used to, or was used to with MK9. A lot of people would want to deal with that. So I kind of, I guess, goes into the eternal question, like how do we unite the Mortal Kombat community in the next game when everybody has different preferences? What one person considers a good game, another person does not, and how do we make, I guess, the most unifying game moving forward? I think those are some questions that I don't think anybody has the answer to. Rio, what do you think?
Well, I think we should start with things that many people can agree are not enjoyable or fun to play or be to sit through. Like, for example, I think when I play a lot of the newer games these days, one thing I don't find enjoyable is when you're stuck doing certain things. Like the game just feels super slow. Like, for example, in MK1 and even in MK11, when you do like a string and then you're forced to go through the entire animation and your opponent will do something like jump or get hit in the air, clipped by something, then they land and they punish you because your character's stuck doing these super long animations. I think the first step is to make the games feel more free when you play them and less scripted, like you're doing a movie sequence. And anytime you try to do a string, they could start there. Another thing is maybe lessening some of the super easy to do options from being so effective. Like when people are, I don't know, like for example, I'm not saying this is broken, but deciding to hold up in the air. and then for whatever reason you go to do a string or move and you're just stuck in a million frames of recovery, and then you get to watch them as they land off their floaty jump into a big combo. And I think to start with, they just need to speed the games up and make it feel like whatever you press on the controller you see happen on the screen, but in less of a scripted way where it's like you're watching a canned animation off everything you try to do. Because when you make games like that, I think it feels more tedious to play.
Well, how do we? I think we have talked enough about Mortal Kombat. Well, recent MK1 specifically, right? How do we? What do these changes? What would they mean for a game like?
Well, I mean,
for
this applies for any game. Like even if I was playing a first-person shooter game and it takes like a 20-minute animation to do a reload or to climb up a little cliff or to jump or something, I don't like clunky long animations. I think that's just a turnoff.
No, fair enough. But I think if you look at the way, and I look at the way modern fighting is played, and I've talked about this before. Like cooldown right now in fighting games, and obviously even in quote unquote last generation with MK11, right, is very, very important. That's essentially the game, right? It's not just with Mortal Kombat 1 or 11. Tekken 8 is the same way. Street Fighter 6 is just pure cooldown, right? Like you have to manage your resources so you don't get burned out and you don't get bodied in a corner, right? So like long animations and like for example long throw animations are super important because that allows you to safely reduce your cooldown and let it whatever you in Street Fighter 6's cases it's a drive gauge, right? In MK it's when Havoc back throws you, I think his animation is slightly longer than most back throws. I think it maybe lasts like 1 second more. That's big because that allows Striker to come back or Mavado, whichever cameo you're using. I'm not justifying it. I think it kind of slows the game down, but I can understand what the developers were thinking, right?
Yeah, I see what you're
And it's
saying,
by
but
the way,
what I'm referring to is I think they should strive away from that playstyle. I think they need to get rid of the auto regenning mechanics and go with the more the players have to control that mechanic by building it or going for it, because I think that makes it more. You want the game to be so they have to interact with it, not they're just standing there walking back and then they're regenning something that they want to do in 5 or 10 seconds. I think that's just lazy game design.
yeah, just real quick, Injustice is kind of the same way, right, with the traits because they're all based on cooldown. So doing a long combo like with Zod and Injustice One, that's what you want to do because then you can your trait is safely um, you know, safely returning and safely coming back, so you can, whatever, zone more, start your offense, whatever the case may be, right? That's just how those games are designed. Should we have that back? I'm okay with not bringing a big app, back. Maybe we should try something different. What do you think, Tom?
So the cooldowns, I'm not a fan of moves on cooldown in fighting games. Unless something like Scorpion Spear, obviously, or like a Baraicho Puke Puddle, because the reality is, if you could just do it infinitely, right? So obviously, there needs to be some things in that aspect, But overall, I'm not a fan of cooldown in fighting games. Um, I'm much rather like just limit that the move cannot be done again as long as the person is still in a combo state, as opposed to just cooldown. The trait in Injustice, I thought that was so. Anytime you see some type of cooldown, whether it's trait in Injustice or even the self-regenerating meters in MK11, the problem is you have situations where it automatically slows the pace down. Like Doomsday, if he almost has his trait, sometimes he'll wait the next 5 to 7 seconds for the trait to come back, then trade up and come in, or so on and so forth, right? Or like Aquaman, his ability to escape combos, etc. He'll wait for that trait to come back before he tries something sometimes, or even like MK 11, where sometimes the match would come to a halt while somebody's waiting for their meter to come back. You saw this with Jackie sometimes, and then they would kind of do whatever with their pressure, and then they would leap away, and then so kind of like pay tentative until they got their bar back. And so I think that ultimately slows gameplay down just by nature. Your most powerful moves are going to be tied to that meter. So when it's gone, you more than likely are going to wait for it to come back before you start anything again. So I'm not fans of that. I think when it comes to like a fighting game, the best thing you can do is make the fighting game as freestyle as humanly possible, which is a balanced nightmare for developers. I feel like developers are caught between wanting to make the game more accessible so it can sell, but make the game as least freestyle as possible, simply because for balancing purposes it's easier on them. So it's like, hey, how do we make the game more accessible while limiting your freestyle options, which is why we see so many 50-50s today, or canned mix situations. Those are situations that you can plan for, you know they exist, you know the game is going to be based around that because you put it in there for that. And it's easier to balance because there's less wiggle room, like everything is funneled through that spectrum. Uh, and I think it's just a huge mistake. I think people need that freedom, but that freedom then leads to maybe not as accessible and definitely harder to balance. So I think it's tough for developers as well, because we play it, but they got to make it and maintain it. It's easy to look at it from our point of view, but we unfortunately, we do have to look at it from both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rio, what do you think?
I agree with what Tom said. I think fighting games need to be designed to be more freestyle. You have to let the player control and play how they want. This is why, in my opinion, they need to do their best to remove any kind of cooldown mechanic in the game. Now, what Tom said is true. You don't want it to be so you could do like an infinite, right? Like, Katana UMK3. The reason why the Phantos has a cooldown so you can't machine gun it, do like an infinite juggle combo every second, or Baraicho can't, do his puddle repeatedly. But what they should do is, instead of having like a 3-second cooldown place, why don't they do something like and like I'm gonna mention MKX. I know it's kind of crazy to bring that game up, but in Brightro in that game in MKX, you had to drink out of his flask to become drunk enough to do his puke puddle, stuff like that. So you can have moves, instead of having a cooldown, have it so you have to build a resource to go up to them. So that way the player has to, be playing in the game to activate them. And for Katana, for her to get her fan back, just make it so she has to do like an animation where she can make the fan come back to her, or she could load another one up, things like that. I think that's a lot better than having it so the player doesn't have to do anything but walk forward and wait for the cooldown to recharge. I think that's just lazy gameplay design. And it's a shame because in MK1, for example, there's so much of that. I've been playing a lot of it past few weeks, and I noticed a lot of the game plan is, at least with the players in Combat League, is a lot of them just like to walk back, wait for the cameo. It's like the game goes on like a temporary pause while everybody's waiting for resources to come back, and then they start playing the game again. And that little pause is probably the most boring part of the game to me. So what they could have done is they could have gave all these characters different moves where they tag in their cameo, but their character's able to move still, and their characters can do like quick little taunts in the background to build up the cameo meter, instead of having an auto refill where you're less doing stuff in the match. I think that would have been a lot more fun to play MK1. And for the next MK game, I really would like them to remove as much cooldowns as possible, make it so characters have to actually build their resource or set them up or try to stock them up.
I mean, Mortal Kombat 1 has some of that. Like, for example, Geras, right? Charging his hourglasses, Tanya doing her seeking guidance, and I might be forgetting one or two other characters. But honestly, truth be told, most of the time, this is very difficult to balance because, like for example, in Gears' case, yeah, the hourglasses are worth doing because he essentially gets a full screen freeze, right? But like in Tanya's case,
we're talking about that's balance issue. Like it's not that method doesn't suck because the way Tanya does it is just ends up being bad. They could easily buff her or change her properties or do stuff to make it good. But the way Gears and Tanya are designed, where they have to actually do stuff in the game to build their resources instead of it coming back automatically over time, is 100 times better as design. Like, I'd rather have that for every character, where they have to actually build the resource and do something for it, instead of getting it for free over time.
I don't know. I think you can have both. I don't understand why we can have both. You can have...
Because the cooldown thing is just, it's lazy. It's not... You want people to interact when they're playing a game and do stuff to achieve things, not just have it come automatically after 5 or 10 seconds.
No, I understand definitely your argument. But I just like with the cooldown meta, I wouldn't want just a meta where everybody just charges stuff nonstop, because by definition.
But the thing is, they're not just charging nonstop. Like, characters would have different animations, different moves that go into it, different frames, how it works. Some people would want to rush down so they don't get set them up. Some people would be able to do them off certain setups or cancels. Like, I think it'd be way more interesting than having any kind of character just reset slowly over time.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. A lot of them Mortal Kombat one, it's so cooldown uh, heavy. By the way, again, it's not. I don't think it's just Mortal Kombat one. I think Tekken 8 and 346 work similar. I don't play Guilty Gear, so I kind of comment. But it is like you said. I think the game is very offensive, but there's definitely this pause, right? Like, okay, I'm just gonna wait until you know my Tremor cameo is recharged or whatever. My Melina Kung, my Kung Lao, so I can do a low hand,
Yeah,
get in,
and
do.
I'm not speaking of it from a spectator, like watching Tekken and seeing that. I'm speaking from a player perspective, like playing, and then during that period when no one's doing anything, because we're waiting for cameo, that's the most boring part of the fighting games out these days. During that part, you know why people aren't doing anything, you know why you're waiting. It just feels like right now everything's paused and we can't really play. We're just waiting for this. It's just not very. I would consider it probably the worst part of the game's design today.
Well, Tom, what do you have to say? Because your favorite move is kind of on cooldown, right? More than it should have for what it's for what it's worth, right? It kind of always has been. What do you think?
So the cameo issue, the cooldown was like, and this is something that we saw even like from the beginning of the game. But I think that's mainly, I haven't played it in the last couple of patches, so I can't speak to it over the last 6 months, 7 months. I haven't followed it, but at least in the first year to year and a half, uh, the game was what made it feel incomplete to me was the exact scenario that Rio was talking about, where you're just kind of waiting for your cameo to come back. And this is because, most characters needed their cameo to do like functional stuff. The characters were originally designed to be half a character and then the cameo would complete it. But there are just some characters who didn't need their cameos to do their everyday heavy lifting, and they could save the cameo for whatever win condition they wanted. A great example of this was early in the game when I would catalog certain cameos, and I was when Chameleon was like 99% of everyone's cameo, I'm like, but there's this many Kano, this many Kung Lao, this many Goro, and then of course the Chameleon, and I'm like, why are there so many cameos? And I looked at it, and this is the first year of Johnny Cage, and it was all Johnny Kano, Johnny Goro, Johnny Kung Lao, Johnny Chameleon, and it was Johnny was considered broken, but it's mainly because they put an MK9 character in MK1, so he could literally do everything he needed to do without the cameo, and then the cameo was there only to enhance his win conditions. Whereas other characters, they had to use cameo. Oh, I can't use my moves unless the cameo is there to make it safe. I can't do this without cameo. Can't do that without cameo. Don't have combos without cameo. It was, it just, it was a massive issue. And a lot of characters, they're like, okay, well, I'll just wait for my cameo to come back. We saw this all the time with Chameleon. She had a low cooldown. So it wasn't that slow, but other cameos we saw was a problem. And even now, like I was watching Evo, I went back the other day and watched some matches. I saw an instance where online Kale needed to make a comeback to win. So he was running away, running away until he got sector, call sector, then come in overhead into sector, and then whatever in a fatal blow. And or no, he did a sweep. My mistake, a sweep into it. And I'm like, well, this was of I'm like, this is kind of like the problem with these cooldowns, right? It's automatically going to slow. And MK1 is designed to be faster paced than MK11, and yet we still see a lot of these cooldown scenarios. I'm not a big fan of it at all. I mean, I think cooldowns are terrible in fighting games in most instances.
Yeah, I play Kung Lao as well, and Riku can tell you all about that.
We had some
I
funny sets actually.
Yeah. It's
And Dave, when I call you scrub and stuff like that when we're playing, I'm not even being serious. It's just, but bro, your playstyle is like the epitome of what I do not enjoy about current gen fighting games. Like his playstyle is all, let me walk back, wait for sector cam to recharge, do homing missile, come in 50-50 or throw combo, run away, rinse, repeat. Like it's just, oh my god. But again, it's not a shot at you as a player, or whatever. because you can't be blamed, right? You're just playing the game to, I guess, the game's strength or how you want to play it. But yeah,
Well,
that gameplay to me is not. I don't consider that like how fighting games should be going forward, in my opinion.
I think Kung Lao is actually. I know a lot of people will disagree. I think he's actually a well-designed character in that game because it's essentially a game um, in which most of the projectiles are horrendous. I mean, you look at Sub Zero. His projectile in Mortal Kombat 11, I think, had like 28, 29 frames of startup, and
Yeah.
and I think in MK1 it's like close to
I believe it
40. I
was
mean,
30,
yeah.
30,
So
something
30
like that.
something.
Something
Yeah,
crazy.
It's like in the upper 30s. So a lot of the projectiles are very weak, to say the least. And I don't have to get into details. Like some projectiles have like traveling restrictions, like reptiles, Melinas. Um, Others are just horrendous. Like Kitana's projectiles are probably the worst she's ever had in any Mortal Kombat game. Uh, However, Kung Lao has actually kind of a nerfed version of Kitana's Mortal Kombat 9 projectile. So by definition, he's going to be able to zone properly, and I enjoy using it because I don't think it's monotonous. You're kind of like, you're whiffing your dive kick, building meter, doing projectiles, throwing missiles, getting in, getting out when appropriate. I think it's a lot more fun to watch and it's a lot more fun to play than, I don't know. I know these are not necessarily the best of examples, but like that shot, that stroke, that type of garbage, even Doctor Fate to a lesser extent, because there's a lot of interactions going on, right? Like, yeah, sometimes you're just holding back, but other times you're dive kicking, you're throwing your area projectile, your grounded projectile. There's a missile, there's a double missile. Now you're walking back. That's why I don't think the character has ever been nerfed and has never received any buffs. Like he's very good, but not in the monotonous NRS zoning way that a lot of that ruin games for a lot of players, especially or the casual audience. So actually, I really like his design. He's very very fun to play.
I think this is why MK9 is still, as Dave would say, seen with rose-colored glasses. I think the one thing they got right was the thing that people really love, freestyle. Um, like, and what I liked about MK9, for example, is you really had to spend some time to discover stuff. Like it wasn't simple. Like, for example, Diddle came in here the other day and he said, Diddle's like clones, not defense. Well, like, let's take MK9, for example. In the situation of Katana, she makes it hard for me to approach her. So I had to make it hard for her to approach me. And I don't use the clone to hide behind it. I use it to combat her extended normals to really force it to be a stalemate match, where chip damage for me can win. And of course, if I just throw it out at the wrong time, she can instant air fan and juggle me behind it because I'll be airborne and it's unbreakable. Have to be careful when you use it. Or situations where I'll read somebody wants to jump, and there's sometimes human habit when somebody gets tunnel vision on their next move. Like I can do a quick jump in, and because they already had jump on their mind because they're looking for me to do something that they can jump over, like an ice ball or something, then they'll then go to air because they already had jump on their mind because they were looking for something like that. And then I can do a quick jump in ice clone halfway in, and they jump into it. And it's like, why'd I do that? You can kind of play mind games with people's habits, or you can trap someone on the corner. There's all types of ways. Like Diddle, all he sees is me like that move. Like he doesn't see like all the different ways you can use it in so many different matchups. Or like Cabal, like if Cabal were look at Cabal in MK11, for example. It's just jump kick, instant air blast, instant gas, it's the gas flight over and over and over again, or jump punch. It's constantly jump kick or jump punch into like the float over and over and over again. And then you look at MK9 Cabal and look at the difference, how they're effective. While 9 was better, and someone would say, oh, broken, you had to use so many different moves. So you had to use the gas blast, instant air gas blast, then a little higher gas blast sometimes, almost instant air gas blast. I don't know when to do which, when to then mix it up with the ground saw, when to pull the trigger on the full screen Nomad Dash, when to flash parry it and stop right in front of them, when to come in and stop and pressure, when to pressure and poke, when to pressure into more pressure, when to pressure into zoning to, kind of keep people. And you had to use all these 5, 6, 7 tools in conjunction with each other, which is why Rio's Cabal wasn't Kerbo's Cabal, wasn't Sunk's Cabal, wasn't Detroit's Cabal, because it's just when you have that many tools that have to be used in conjunction, you're going to have a big difference between how it looks between one player and the next. When it's just overhead low throw, there's really no way to differentiate that. Same thing if you look at Freddy. I know people will say, "Oh, Dave, the zoning," but Freddy had to use, straight claw. It wasn't even so much. It was more like a full screen frame trap style of zoning, as opposed to just, take projectile like a modern zoner and just ram projectile over and over and over again. Like fireball, 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 fireball. You didn't know how to use straight glove, ground glove, uh, then the spike, which I think there were 3 or 4 versions of. Then there was EX spike. You had to know when to go into nightmare stance for movement, when to use it for movement and threaten with a move, when to teleport backwards or forwards, when to EX, when to come in for your low or your overhead there and take some risk there. And of course, you couldn't do that safely because you had to use your EX move, which you don't have infinite meter. And you look at all these 5, 6, 7 tools to be used in conjunction to make the character what they are, which is again why there's just so much freestyle. You don't see that today, and I think that's why that game was so hard to balance, because when you give that many options, when that many tools have to be used collectively to complete the picture, it's tough to really, for a developer, to understand how someone's going to use those tools because there's just so much wiggle room. But I think that's what makes that game so fun. And most people today, they look past that because all they say is, "Oh, the brokenness in the tier." Well, that's what's, that kind of stuff can happen. And who knows how the game would have turned out if they could have patched it the way we can today. But I think that is an example of, you know, and maybe there should have been a little more limitations than the game had just for balance purposes. But I think that's a good example of what makes the game very freestyle.
Well, I would actually. I was literally thinking about Mortal Kombat uh, 9 as I've had some days, a couple of days up because of the cold here in the United States. Um, for me, if you were to quote unquote fix MK9, I think the game would resemble nothing like the MK9 that people played and
If they
grew
could
up.
patch it like it did today, you mean? Like if
Yeah,
they had the
so
ability to.
you would have to get rid of the player one advantage. You would have to redo the block stunt, right? Because you
Sure.
the block stunt is kind of long. That would have to be removed. You would have to buff the crap out of the low tiers. Like you would essentially have to uh fix a lot about Shiva, and I know some of the modders have done that. You would have to do something to Kano. You would have to obviously remove a lot of the broken stuff with the top tier, like for example, like the smoke 100% combos. You would have to reduce Cyrax's damage. You would have to look at armor. You would
But
have
you
to
can
look at
still have that freestyle though. Like Freddy would still need to use 7. Freddy would still need to use 7 or 8 tools to be Freddy.
I understand that,
You know
but
what I mean? It wouldn't just be do these 2 moves over and over and over again in mix.
no, no,
You know
I
what I'm saying?
understand your point. I don't think you're wrong about that. I'm just saying that
I feel like
if
Dave's
you
talking more about the character balance. Tom is talking more about the freestyle, like the game mechanics, how the game plays
well, I think
foundationally.
they're kind of intermingled, right? That they kind of go in hand in hand, right? They're connected. I don't think it's not even about necessarily about which characters are strong or weak. I'm just also addressing that the game is just inherently flawed, with its glitches and bugs, and you would have to. There's like 4 or 5 glitches in the game, itself. Um, just meter drain. There's another one. I know it doesn't happen. It didn't happen as much maybe as I rage about it. Nonetheless, it was an issue, right? So I feel like to quote unquote fix that game, you would probably end up with a game um, that probably wouldn't resemble the original Mortal Kombat 9 as much as people think it would. I don't know, Rio, your take on it? Because I was thinking about this the other day.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends. If there was a way to play MK9 without the input bug, without the meter drain glitch, without the player one invincibility, without the round invincibility glitches, without what else? The meter drain glitch. I think it would still play like MK9 and just wouldn't have to be dealing with all those nonsense mechanics that shouldn't be in the game.
But you would have to like, for example, the super armor, right? You have to remove that, and that would.
Yeah, well, I mean that's then getting into like the actual character. But I thought you meant just getting rid of the game breaking bugs. If you get into
Well, yeah,
the actual like balance, like should Sonya have more than one hit of armor and armor cartwheel, or should it be unsafe?
yeah.
Then that's like I guess a patch for the game, like balance patch.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm just going to use an example that a lot of people don't know about. Obviously, Rio will know. Like Rio and I play Outbreak, and you play vanilla Outbreak, and then you play this modded version of Outbreak, which is a Resident Evil game, and it's like the meta is so different. Like it's one is kind of like a slower pace; you can just kind of run through a lot of the stuff, and then the modded version is like super like forces cooperation. It's huge, offense. Whereas in the original, you really don't have to kill too many enemies, essentially none, if you can just run past everything, So I mean, it's still Outbreak, but like, it's not it's almost like a different game, right? In what it kind of did. I feel like you would have to do the same thing with Mortal Kombat 9. I mean, it's not like the game was like, hey, just a couple of patches or no way. I'm sure like to fix everything, you would need to do like multiple patches, and some of the stuff they tried to fix back in the day just couldn't, based on the way the game was coded, So um, I'm not, you know, I'm not against Mortal Kombat 9. I think yes, to this day, I know I sometimes trash it. Like to this day, I think it has like the best like fundamental basis. But the game itself, like as a whole, is so flawed because of its glitches, its bugs. It's just horrendous balance. A lot of characters don't do really anything. Like Shiva is just not Shiva. Why is she in the game? She doesn't do anything. Like her half of her moves don't even work. They just whiff. Like she shouldn't even be in the game. Like Kano is just like been nerfed so bad. At one point, Apple like was broken, and then they nerfed it that you could barely even anti-air with it. It's just like, what? Like the game has so many issues. I think it has to do, like Tom referenced earlier, like rose-colored glasses. I think that's the way people look at the game. And if they had to play it, especially for money, you would see a lot of complaints.
Yeah, I mean it is a shame whenever you see an MK9 tournament. After like the first match win, you have to see the players do rock paper scissors or request chair switch, so they alternate between player 1 and player 2. But yeah, those issues. I mean, I think we can all agree that we want all the glitches and game breaking bugs like that fixed. So in terms of gameplay, I think that would be in the developers' hands and what they feel should be changed. Because if it's not, then they're gonna have to listen to which players do you listen to. Like, do they give new 50% combos? Do they remove smokes resets? Do they do etc. or do they not? It's at that point it would be too much of a debate between players.
Well, let me ask Rio you specifically, because the rumor is that the next game will likely be Injustice. Um, I know we have talked about the movement. I think the movement definitely needs to better. I think they need to make the game more like you said, like more interactive. And less about, hey, I'm going to hold back ironically and let my trade recharge, and then I'm going to do something, right? It's not as heavy, obviously, as Mortal Kombat 1, but, it kind of has a lot of that. I think they need to, again, improve the movement. They need to, I think they need to make certain offense better. What do you think?
Well, for one, I want to see them try to. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Well, I think it's going to be. I agree with you, Dave, but I think it's going to be a cut and paste again, just because their budget is so. It's just really unfortunate, because the business circumstances, like Warner Brothers, they're done, right? Somebody's buying it, and that whatever business deal probably won't the official sale won't be totally finished, I think, until sometime next year, they said. So all they're looking is to spend almost no money, milk the last bit of money from the Injustice IP and move on. So it's going to largely be a cut and paste with very little money for development. So unfortunately, just because of the business of things, I think it's going to suffer.
Go ahead, Ryu.
To go on to what Tom said, I guess if they're going to have low effort into it because of all the issues going on with the company behind it making the game, what they could do is do like a remake of Injustice 1 so they have to spend as little time as possible making it because most of it's already done for them. They just have to, make it for the newer consoles and fix it up a bit. They could do that, but then include like a balance patch and then allow the players to either play the Injustice 1 the way it was when it was on the last patch 2014, or to try out the new version of the game. I think if they do that, it'd be easier on them because then they have characters that already have a kit that they can work around and just tweak things. But yeah, I mean, the definitely the movement needs to be touched on. They need to make it playing a superhero game with characters like that. They're very strong, all these powers. They should not be slowly walking forwards and backwards at you like there's somebody taking a stroll to the supermarket. It just kind of takes you out of the element and ruins the whole immersion of playing a fighting game. So that needs to be the first thing addressed. The movement, make it feel like you're playing superheroes. Make it interesting. Give super jumps, air dashes, air flight, ground movement, dashes, running, whatever. You know what? They should actually make it different per character. Some characters should have dashing. Some characters could have block dashing. Some characters could have running. Some characters can have a flight mode or air dashing, and go on from there.
Would you do anything about the trait? Like, would you implement certain ideas?
I think, yeah, every character needs to work for the trait. Get rid of the auto regenning trait. I think that's awful. That needs to go.
Tom, what do you think? Where do you stand?
I would get rid of the auto regenning trait as well. And it also causes problems because the issue with the trait resetting, so like if your trait is almost full and somebody clashes or causes a transition, it will go right back to empty.
Yeah.
Because they only have the game coded to be empty or full. So when a transition happens, or whether it be for a clash or for a green transition, it will either automatically always be full or automatically go back to empty. It's just, I think it's a bad idea, has obvious problems. I would just remove the cooldown and just have some way to build your trait, like meter, or a way to sacrifice some meter for trait. I mean, I don't, just if you want to get it faster.
They should make
there
it
are things
for
you
every
can
character,
do, right? Yeah, there are things you can do. I agree.
Unique in what manner?
Like every character has a different way to build their trait. Like some characters would have to go into taunts for it. Some characters like Cyborg and Justice 1 trait. I know his Injustice 1 trait was trash, but the concept of his trait when Justice 1 was you could charge it and hold it. They could do something like that. So he has to charge his trait up, kind of like how Sinestro did it. The way he did it is actually, his shouldn't be changed. His works fine. He has to build for it. He has to work for it. It doesn't come back automatically. So it's really character dependent. And then Backer also has a cool trait. Her trait is her stance switching, which stance you want to be on. Like some characters actually don't need to be changed. It's the characters that have to do nothing and it automatically refills. That's very boring, and they should get a redesign.
Yeah, I guess that would be pretty cool. Everybody kind of has a different way to, like you said, to fill up the trait, whether it's...
Yeah, like some characters could build it by doing specific special moves. Some characters build it by doing cancel. Some characters build it by, I don't know. There's a million ways they really could do it to make every character feel different. But at least they're earning it and doing something to, work for it instead of just walking back and waiting for it to refill for 10 seconds.
Would you redesign like the meter room back threes?
Yes, I think that's really bad. I think they need to redesign the armor mechanic in general.
I mean, Injustice is really not known for its armor, unless you're talking about like maybe Bane or Solomon Grundy. I don't think armor is like a huge meta-defining aspect as in Mortal Kombat X, or to a lesser extent MK1, right?
Well, I mean, it really depends on the character. Some characters, like I know Marsh's back three was really dumb because when you would do it, it would beat a lot of moves, it would eat wake-ups, it would armor break.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
But it feels
Tom,
like...
Yeah, go ahead. Finish, please.
No, I was going to say, usually in NRS games, it feels like the way you bait armor is just by blocking and punishing, or jumping, or armor breaking. They don't have mechanics to play like, oh, throws beat armor, or lows counter armor. Like if there's just... The way they do it is very shallow.
Tom, would you change anything about back threes, especially the meter burn ones?
So, you mean that the armor, or that they're unclashable?
Well, I mean, some people don't like back threes in general. They feel like the combo system is a little bit stale, right? You do, I don't know, some type of launch, you back three, and then like it's kind of like similar um, combo structure for a lot of the cast, so people don't like that.
So when we were there, originally they wanted back three. They didn't want armor in the game because we're coming off of MK. So again, it just there's just Stone Age, right? A lot of Injustice is the way it is coming off the back of MK9, and they just never updated it, right? Injustice 2, because MK9, the armor we just talked about, Sonya's armor or all the armor in that game, they didn't want that game people coded in armor. So they thought, well, at least everybody will have some type of armor move and they can cancel it with a dash for like an armor dash. And that was the purpose of it. Um, so they were like, we'll give it to everybody, which of course made it universal. The fact that they're unbreakable was a bug, and they asked us, do we like that or should they fix it? And we were like, we like it. So they kept it that way. But it it is kind of like, launcher, back three, jump in with like heavy,
Yeah,
end the combo.
Then
That's
do a string
a pretty
under.
much right. It's a universal combo, like Aquaman, right? Back 1-2 from the deep, right? Um, and then back three, jump heavy, right? 2-2 EX from the deep, and then whatever. Ares, right? Combo into EX, pound the ground. Back three, jump two, ender. And that's a unit, a lot of characters do that. Harley Quinn, right? Bomb bomb into pop pop launcher, back three, right? It's just you see where it's going. Joker, blah blah blah. Teeth go off, back three, teeth forward three, hard knockdown. It's a very recurring theme. It just makes it, arrow, whatever into frozen arrow, back three,
Jump
right?
three and then
It's
string
just
under.
yeah. Just it's a recurring theme. I think. Yeah, I agree with Dave on that. It's a little ridiculous.
let's talk about maybe a more controversial topic. Um, First of all, I think when Rio and I specifically talk about Mortal Kombat One, there's a lot of the word scrubby being thrown around, and I think the word has lost all its meaning. Can we at least agree that we don't want characters like Death, Prepare's Deathshot, right? You can call it scrubby, you can call it easy to use. I don't care which term you use; it's relevant to me, right? We can all agree we don't want characters like that.
Yeah, but
But I
to be
do
fair,
feel
we also have to label certain characters in a way because that also expresses we don't want that kind of playstyle in games generally.
well, but you can't be on for freestyle now. You don't want certain like which one? Which one is it? You can't be both. Like you either respect the way people.
You can have characters that are not scrubby that fit in any style. Like you can have a zoner that's not scrubby. You could have 50/50 character that's not scrubby. You can have an armor character that's not scrubby. It's really on how they design the character. But unfortunately, a lot of these characters get made in a very shallow, one-dimensional way, with not a lot of thought put behind it. That's why they get called scrubby.
I think one of the biggest misconception is that the modern games are easy to play. I don't think they are at all. They require a different set of skill than the older games used to do. Right. For example, if you play the older games like Ultimate, right, there's certain like execution requirements that really don't exist anymore. Like for example, Cabal's instant area gas blast is very difficult to do. There are no shortcuts, right, Rio? And then, you
Yeah,
have like certain
Cabal's instant in that game is harder than any instant is in these newer games to do. I'm not saying it's like super like you wouldn't learn it, but it requires a little bit more effort to practice. And most people honestly need to use like a hitbox or keyboard to even do them consistently.
yeah. And we don't want to get into the keyboard issue, but the also the reality is like you have like certain punish that are kind of like just frame, right? If you try to like certain characters like can punish sweeps, right? And it's like a just
Yeah,
frame.
like to punish the sweep, for example, Sindelium K3, it's a just frame punish, and that game has no buffering. You have to manually let go of the frame to do moves. It doesn't auto buffer for you with normals or specials.
Yeah, and certain combos are like they're very difficult to do, like reptiles, right? Jab combo. It depends on the whether you're fighting a male ninja or female ninja. If it's a bigger character, then it's easier to do like Shiva. So modern games don't really have stuff like that for the most part. I'm not saying it's non-existent, but they don't really have stuff like that. However, for example, the meter management in Ultimate to me is a joke. Like, when are you not running forward? So that there's zero like management. Like you just touch your people. No, that's all I hear. Right. That's all you hear. Like whatever the scream is when they run. Right. So the point is, every game has something that's quote unquote scrubby. So like to complain about it nonstop, not saying that Rio is, but like whatever you dislike, whether it's drive rushes or the cameo system, like that's what fighting games are, right? And usually the better the character is, usually there's something that's easy to use and the reward is very high. In fact, that's essentially the definition of good moves and the definition of a good character. Well, not just good, of a top tier character. So I don't know, to complain about stuff that I think is pretty harmless in my opinion, uh, is kind of like pointless. Again, it doesn't mean I want pew pews on the screen, every 2 seconds. I just think we have to face reality that some of the stuff will be in the game, and if you are for quote
Okay,
unquote
so
freestyle
do
gameplay,
you
then
have
you
a
have to play the
problem
whole
with
game.
people calling stuff scrubby, the word, or do you have a problem with the playstyle that they're referenced to as scrubby? Because I
Well,
can't
to
tell if you
me,
have an issue with the term that's being used to describe this, or if you have an issue with the playstyle being complained about.
I have an issue with both because I think that the term has lost its meaning. Tom can tell you he's been around more than anybody else. Like scrub used to mean like a player who just complains they couldn't adapt. So scrubby is the
That's a
adjective.
different term. That you're talking about scrub. We're talking about scrubby.
No,
And
okay,
we've
fair
been
enough.
using this term since like the 3D MKs. It's been around for decades. It's not something that just came out of nowhere like 2 months ago.
But I think even if you go by your definition, to me it's pointless to say that something is scrubby because by definition, fighting games will have scrubby stuff. That's just the way they're designed. Like something will always be easy to use and give you a lot of reward. It's just part of balance, and sometimes that stuff is very difficult to do. And other times it not. Other times it just depends on on the level that you're playing, like an
Right, but
Earthshaker, right?
some stuff that's easy to use it actually isn't scrubby. It really depends on the move.
Well, I would argue very few stuff in Mortal Kombat 1 is scrubby. And I would argue even in MK11, very few stuff is scrubby. Like I don't think anything about the game is scrubby. If you have Toms in my view, you just don't like universal mechanics. That's it. I don't think the game is scrubby at all. I don't even know what that means. Same thing with MK1. If you just like the cameo system and
The history lesson, because Dave said the original meaning of scrubs. So I'm so old. The original meaning of scrubs is short for scrubbers. They were called scrubbers before scrubs, and that's because this is back in the arcade era. They would go to the arcade and they would rub their hand across all the buttons as if they were scrubbing the floor. Hence, they were called
I didn't
scrubbers.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just got shortened to scrubs. So when a game is scrubby, we're basically saying that that's a tactic that even that guy could be successful with. It just means that it's easily accessible, easy to use, and highly effective. So by that definition, it makes a lot of things scrubby, I guess, in modern fighting games.
Rio,
Yeah,
go
well,
ahead
what's
and
funny is in MK Deception, this term was used the most, scrubby, and I feel like even when we describe MKD 2 decades later, it still kind of applies to the gameplay style. I don't think anybody would deny MK Deception is not a scrubby game.
I mean,
No, I
I
probably
don't
would.
think anybody's claiming that it's it's this godlike execution fighting game. I think at some point you either play it or you don't, and if you don't like it, then don't play it. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I
Right,
just
but
don't.
it's not always black and white like that. Sometimes you can like a game, but not like some of the scrubby stuff in it. That could also be true at the same time.
Well, what do you think like is scrubby in Mortal Kombat 1 in your opinion?
I mean, the regening meter is the fact that you don't have to work or do anything to have access to somebody's devastating attacks that can win you games is kind of crazy to me. Fatal blows, another thing that's super scrubby. Up block, the way you get rewarded for doing a simple task, 50% better than doing anti-air jab or kick. You get more rewarded for that. The easier option. These, to me, I would consider scrubby mechanics. They're low effort, high rewarding. I don't think anybody's gonna clap when they see somebody get hit by a fatal blow or see somebody get up block in a tournament because they understand, even though they may not know what the term scrubby is, but even they understand automatically, like, wow, that wasn't even like that impressive. He just did up block or he just did fatal blow or he just I think fighting
But
games
don't you
need to start. I think they need to start doing less of that, in my opinion.
But not everybody plays fighting games to get clapped at. People play fighting games for a variety of reasons. I don't care. Nobody was gonna clap when they saw Tom play. Or
But the
me.
thing is, some people did though. Some people were into that.
Well, yeah, but some people are also,
I remember one time I was watching Tom play MK Top 8, and all I heard in the background of the crowd was, "Yo, give Sonya that ice stick." That's all I heard, like yelling.
Yeah,
And people were going crazy. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's gonna be like, "Yo, up block, up," like I don't, or fatal blow. Like I think people really don't like stuff like that. It's just a turn
Well,
off.
I think a good example of how simple it is. Like I'll watch, and this is just a big pet peeve. God bless the Twins. I mean, like I have my own issues with like some of their favoritism toward MK, but it is what it is. But I'll watch them and they're commentating, and somebody will do a string that has a high in it, and the guy will duck it and punish them. And all you hear is the knowledge. And I'm going, this is simple, you know.
Bro, I have to give the Twins respect. They can make almost anything seem hype as hell with that the way they commentate it.
They very much. The Twins remind me of like Jim Ross and anyone that knows wrestling knows what I'm talking about. They're very much like for example, I went back and rewatched. If anyone that's listening that knows wrestling, go back and rewatch Hulk Hogan versus The Rock at WrestleMania when Hogan hulks up and the crowd's loving it because they love the WWF Hogan. And when Hogan drops the leg on The Rock, Jim Ross is going, he beat Andre the Giant with that move. They put all the, you know what I mean? Like, really get you. They do such a great job of that. But for me, someone who knows what's going on, and I understand their style is based because half the people that are watching a tournament, they don't know what the fuck is happening, right? That's kind of the why tournament of FGC, again, is where it is. It's not sports, right? Most people don't even know what half the people don't even know what's going on. So when they're like, but to me, and they're like, the knowledge, and I'm like, the knowledge. It's a string with a high in it. You know, I mean, like that kind of stuff. Or when they'll punish something, the guy will have breaker, and they'll punish something. As opposed to something in a whatever, they'll just fatal blow punish it. So to realize that it was minus enough, the knowledge, and I'm like, that's just simple math. The move is this, and you have a move that's this speed that is unbreakable. This is stuff that used to be common knowledge, but stuff that is the game has gotten so ease of use that things that would be considered common knowledge and not a big deal that someone at the highest level knows it is now like, wow, how did he know that? It's weird. It's just really weird to see that today.
How is it weird? Like even in sports, right? Like you're watching sports, at least from the announcer's perspective, right? Even from the spectator's perspective, because the announcers are trying to sell you the product. They're trying to make you understand like whatever you're watching is important. Now we know there's some of that stuff, like the guy just knows frame data, but obviously, I think that just like JR or King, who was commentating by his side, like they're trying to make you understand what you're watching is important. So why is that a bad thing? Like even if it's not, I don't know.
Well, for example, if I'm watching the old days, let's say Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr., that's his full name, and you're watching that, or Peyton Manning or someone like that, and someone's doing a bomb blitz, a zero covered blitz, and they change the play, full coverage, max protect, and they run a quick slant and burn them for a touchdown, the announcer wouldn't say, the knowledge, because at that level, something so obvious that went undisguised, of course they know that. Like that's expected to be that level. So when you're on like an Evo top 8 stage, it is expected that is common knowledge. This is not, Jimmy 55 and Super Sneakers going at it in the first round of pools or in their living room. This is top 8 of a massive major. Like, well, I shouldn't say that. It won't be Vampire Savior's number, so I don't know how massive. But I mean, I had to pick my cheap shot. It wouldn't be me. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's considered like normal. That's normal.
you just kind of answered your own question. You're comparing fighting games, which are literally like an infant, to the NFL, which I believe was started like over 100 years ago. By contrast, you said it yourself. Like most people, when they watch fighting games, they have no idea what they're doing. Like what they're watching. They just see some other guy trying to beat up some other guy. There's life bars, right? When I was explaining to my friends, like who don't watch fighting games, like what was going on, at my Evo, in which I got top 8, they're like, oh, so you run away because why? Like they didn't understand the basics. Like, of course, the announcers have to sell the product and make it credible and make the audience understand what they're watching is important. Otherwise, why would you watch? I don't understand I don't understand why it's dumb and why it's silly. Like it just makes perfect sense. All the top commentators and all, for Tekken, for Street Fighter, they all kind of do that. Like we've seen a long drive rush combo into super level 3 super and Street Fighter 6 many, many, many times. But if you just watch fighting games casually, well, that might be one of the best combos you've ever seen, at least for the past year or two, right? And of
Well,
course, the
it
announcers do their
depends on the
job.
situation. It depends. For example, if Denzel Terry ducks under a high of a can string, I wouldn't be like the knowledge. But let's say he's playing Rio's Cabal and he's playing Raiden and teleports out of Cabal's back 1-2-1, then I would say that because myself and Rio found that out by accident. No one even knew that was possible. Not common knowledge, and it takes practice to execute consistently. So for that, I would, because it's not common knowledge. A canned string or something that is, minus enough for a fatal blow punish without having to do hit into fatal blow, where you have breaker, so this way the combo is breakable. To me, that's not high level knowledge. That's basic. A kindergartner would know that in a fighting game. So that to me is not something to like. I would harp more on the mistake than the knowledge of a kindergartner.
I don't think you're using even examples that are honestly. I don't think you're even using examples that are good examples, because if I look at a Mortal Kombat 1, there's definitely some stuff that's hard to do. As, for example, King Jr. about his clone setups with Geras, or, Ermac players with their like 60%.
But I'm saying even the simplest things like knowing the high, a string has a high in it.
I mean, I feel like you guys.
What? We've lowered the bar a lot. We've lowered it considerably.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not necessarily talking about the announcers. I'm talking about the way the games are. I mean, the announcers, they're going to say whatever they're going to say. And honestly, most of the time, if I'm especially at work, I'm catching up with some, I don't know, my Street Fighter 6 league. I usually have it on mute anyway. I know what I'm seeing. I don't need to be, I don't need to be, commentated upon. I already know what's happening. I just watch because I like the games or whatever. I want to see a high level match. I mean, I don't, most of the time the announcers for me, they don't do anything. I think the people who are very skilled at what they're doing, God bless them. But I just don't buy the perception that modern games are somewhat like very easy to play. I just think there are certain aspects that have become easier, and I've talked about them in the past. But I can name you many examples of Mortal Kombat 1, even MK11. Like I couldn't do that stuff with Fujin. Even Jackie, I don't think she's a scrubby character. Like, I think this word is just overused. Essentially becomes, I lost to something in Combat League or whatever, and now I'm mad, so I'm going to call it scrubby. That's essentially what that word means to me. But you lost because you got outplayed, or maybe you lost because the other player is just better than you. Maybe you lost because the other player has more hours than you, because he put in the work. Whatever you may think of his gameplay style, I don't see how you can be for freestyling gameplay but be like, this, we don't want that gameplay style. You sound like Cowboy. Not saying necessarily any of you. Like Cowboy's like, I want zoning to be strong. Let's play a long series. No, I don't want to deal with armor. I don't know. I'm out. I don't want to deal with that.
I don't mean to interrupt here, but do you even know what the term freestyle means? Because you're like somehow associating it with the word scrubby.
No, I'm not associating it. I'm just saying you cannot be for quote unquote freestyle gameplay yet call everything scrubby. Like, where's the consistency?
But who's calling everything scrubby?
I mean, you were on the last podcast. You were like literally calling everything scrubby.
Everything I was calling Fatal Blow mechanic scrubby, in which it is. It's a mechanic you get for free, you don't have to work with. And then it's, on top of that, it's so badly designed and so scrubby. I know you don't like that word, but you even regen it and get it back when you whiff it or it's blocked, so you can do it again. If that's not like the definition of a scrubby, new modernized fighting mechanic, then what is? What can we call it?
No, I mean you could call it whatever you want. I'm not trying to like dictate your words. I'm just saying that I'm being realistic. I think even the fighting game that I like the most, in which I placed, like Mortal Kombat 9, it's gonna have its flaws, and you can argue like
People
armor
call stuff
scrubby.
scrubby in MK9 too. That's the thing. Like weird. Like you didn't seem to have an issue back then when we were calling stuff scrubby in that game. But now in MK1, it's like,
I never called. I don't.
I
might have called.
People used to call certain stuff in that game scrubby, but you didn't really have an issue with that back then. But now it's like, well, maybe we should stop using this word scrubby because it's not fair, or you're making excuses for losing.
I'm not trying to make sure you can call whatever you want. I'm not trying to dictate your language. Whatever your communication, you can say whatever you want. I'm just saying the word has been overused.
But you're tying in like, oh, you're losing to this. You said it's scrubby. Why can't you just give him props? You can say somebody's better than you. They're better at the game, and also feel that what they did was scrubby. You're not discrediting them for playing. The scrubby is describing the game that you're playing, not the player that you played against. Two different things.
I mean, the best players, no, they're the same thing. The best players in our scene have done that. When RD's not beating everybody, now all of a sudden the game is good. When he was losing, because I don't know, Luke got nerfed, he lost. He called the game scrubby. Like, come on.
I mean,
like,
but does
really?
He have a point? Think about it. Does Street Fighter 6 have any scrubby tendencies? Is it watered down in any way? Is it easy to do certain stuff?
I don't think about the games like that. I think if you beat me,
you may not think of the games like that, but some of these players do think of that, and they see it and they feel it when they play the game, and they don't like that. That's why they want to express that opinion. You have to understand that, like,
literally.
Well, yeah, he could be salty, but you have to also factor in some people don't like certain stuff being in games. Like, for example, Fatal Blows. People just do not like that. Doesn't matter if you're playing in Sonic Fox using it. They're not going to like the Fatal Blow mechanic. It doesn't matter if it's the best player in the world or the worst player in the world. They think it's an awful mechanic.
I think Tom, here in this case, I've criticized him lately, but I've given props. He's infinitely more consistent than most players in the FGC. Like Tom said, you cannot complain about other people's gameplay styles or whatever certain aspects, but be like, yeah, I want to do this, right, Tom? Like, isn't that what you have always said? Like, you can't turn around and be like, yeah, I'm for all these gameplay styles, freestyle, let's go. No, I don't want to deal with armor. No, I don't want to deal with zoning. No, I don't want to deal with the ice cold. Like, you can't.
Dave, you're confusing playstyle with the term scrubby. Again, you could have any playstyle can exist and be scrubby or not be scrubby. It's not. You keep in a way like combining a term scrubby means this playstyle complaint. It's not really like that. Scrubby can apply to like anything. I don't know why you keep you keep comparing it to armor or zoning specifically. People also say scrubby rushdown, or scrubby mix-up, or scrubby jumping. These are all offensive stuff.
Well, for somebody to have their way of playing, I also have to have mine. I don't care if you think it's scrubby or not. Like, you can do 50-50s all day. That's okay with me. Like, but I should be able to do whatever I want, which usually means I'm allowed to keep you out to an extent.
Well, who is saying your playstyle can't exist? I'm very confused.
Well, I like armor in the neutral. I don't think that's scrubby. Like, that's my gameplay style. And it has been recently. And so what?
It depends how the armor is designed in neutral.
I think Kung Lao's armor is one of the best designed armor in modern fighting games because it requires 2 bars to make it safe. Yes, it has a lot of range. Like, there's a reason, like, who's even winning with Kung Lao? Nobody's even winning with him. I think, and I know you don't necessarily equate it to a character's tier list, but like, a character's tier ranking rather, but like, I think that kind of speaks volumes. People complain a lot about Sector. Like, we had Sunio on, believe it or not, on King Jr.'s podcast. You guys can check that out on King Jr.'s Burrito Voorhees channel. Like, he even said, like, nobody's even winning with this character. What are people complaining about armor? Like, no, it's not scrubby. No, it's not easy to use. It requires a lot of skill, and
I'm very confused as to why somebody has to win with something you call it scrubby. Nobody was winning majors with Doomsday and Justice 1. People are still calling the character scrubby. Why do you have to win with it for it to be called scrubby?
Well, again, scrubby. What the
people
low
were
level?
Calling
Yes.
MK11 Shiva scrubby for your straight, and that character never won a major. She was always losing to other characters.
Yeah, I don't think she should have been nerfed.
So I mean, what does that mean?
Well, I don't know. You're the
Dave,
one
okay, but for some reason you have these rules in place. You're like, well, you shouldn't call this character scrubby if they're not winning with it. But these players don't care if you're winning or not with the character. They feel something is scrubby. They're displaying why they don't like it.
Well, if you are,
Like I'm
uh,
sure there's many majors in MK1 or any game in the grand finals that were not won because of a fatal blow. Does that mean fatal blow is now not a scrubby mechanic all of a sudden? Like I don't understand. You're associating calling something scrubby with them winning or not a tournament when it has nothing to do with that.
well, usually again, most of the I'm not saying you're entirely wrong, but most of the time when people are calling something scrubby, they're probably calling it scrubby because they're losing to it. I mean, I think that's just human nature, and I think to deny that reality is just silly. But
Some
Tom,
people
your
are doing
take?
that, but some people are also not losing to it and also calling it scrubby. Like remember when Sonic, who was the best player in MKX for a while, was beating and winning most of the tournaments, and he was still up there saying, "Yeah, Quan Chi and this and that is all scrubby." I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah. Well, that's thank you for proving my point. So, this player who's literally known for vortexing people to death, including MK1, he's calling stuff scrubby when it's done to him. Like, what? Where's your consistency? Again, the reason he. And by the way, he has lost to Quan Chi. What are you talking about? You use this. You use that one example. Went to a tournament, he got bodied by one player, pretty an unknown player.
He
Well,
did,
yeah.
but
Guess what?
but he still won the tournament though. He just lost to a guy in winners.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guess what? Like, so now again, a mix up is scrubby. Again, it's the cowboy.
But okay,
Syndrome.
separate the player and the person who's saying this, whatever, and look at the character. Was pre-patch MKX Quan Chi scrubby or not?
I don't think he was. I think he was a
You
necessary.
don't think
evil.
pre-patch MKX Quan Chi was scrubby?
Well,
That
I
is a
don't
crazy
like-
hot take.
I don't like certain aspects about the character. Like I didn't like the wake up, uh, instant neutral jumping punches. I
I'm
didn't
not
like
talking
the
about his viability or his tools. I'm talking about his game plan when he would beat people or what he would enforce to do. Was it scrubby lower for gameplay or was it not? Or was it high IQ,
I'm
high
not
execution stuff?
well, I don't think he. I mean, it's MKX. Like, it's not a high execution game. Like, what are we talking about? I never said the game was like, oh my god, guys! If you want like the pinnacle of execution and great gameplay designs, you got to play Mortal Kombat X. It's like that's not what the game is known for. The game is known for its simple 50-50 mix-ups and offense. I mean,
Right, but
that's
what
the
I'm
game.
trying to understand is why are you so bent out of shape off the scrubby term? Like, if you want us to use a different term to describe this, how about we replace scrubby with brain dead then, from going forward, so you don't have to
No,
carry
you
the word anymore?
You
No,
want.
no, because
I
it seems to be more of the issue of the term scrubby being used rather than the point being made on some of this lower for bad game design stuff. You can't always say the player's salty, they lost because they're mad for every single excuse in the game, for every game out there. Eventually,
But that,
it's going to be figured out that, hey, some stuff was just not good design for a game.
well, then aren't you by your own definition? Aren't you like killing the freestyling of the game then for other people? If you don't like, for example, dealing with armor, Kung Lao's armor, then
Nobody's saying to remove the. I never said to nerf Kung Lao's armor. I just said it was scrubby.
okay, but that's my gameplay style. Whatever, anything you like. Some people like Ghost, it's 50-50. I mean, do I enjoy necessarily fighting it? Is my favorite thing in the world? No.
Right, well,
but
that's
like,
why you don't see me going on Twitter making tweets to developers, nerf this, or YouTube videos saying, "Hey guys, this is why Kung Lao's armor should be nerfed."
no, I'm not saying you're arguing for nerds. I'm just saying like you know what the game is and what it isn't. It's not going to
But
change. So, like,
however, I'm not going to clap and like bow to your feet and kiss your feet because you won a match because you did an armor launcher. I think that's terrible gameplay.
nobody's asking you to kiss anybody's feet. It's MK1. I mean, you already know what the game is and what it isn't. Besides, aren't you the guy who at one point kept anti-air counter in MK11 to prove that I don't know anti-airs are like bad or something? I don't know. I mean, you
Talking
get
about
you
that
can
one
look-
tournament
Yeah,
where you had the
anti-airs were
anti-air
yeah, they
counter.
were bad in MK11. It's one of the things I was complaining about for the longest before everybody else caught up and then realized before the final patch, yeah, anti-airs do kind of suck.
Okay, but the point is, the point I'm trying to make is that now you think you used to think that jumping is scrubby in Mortal Kombat 11, correct? And then they added a
low effort to do, required high effort to stop. The best way to answer an MK11 was to flawless block launch them, which was a good option. However, the fact that you have to constantly do that and always have to have meter to do it, and all they have to do is tap up on the controller in comparison was crazy.
well, what do you think? What are your non-scrubby the way you would use? Like what are anti-air
Well,
that are
in my
not
opinion, like I said 7 years ago in MK11, if you're gonna have scrubby stuff like people just jumping and it being strong, then they should probably add easy anti-airs. Like, I don't know, bring back standing anti-air jabs, anti-air roundhouses, stuff like that to counterbalance it.
I mean, that's what MK1 has. I don't understand what your problem is. Like, not only does it have jabs, right? Are they as good as Mortal Kombat 9 jabs? Of course
The
not. But like,
problem with
they did
MK1
that.
is if you know someone's going to do a jump in and hit you, it's better just to do up block because you get 50%. A lot of the anti-air jabs in MK1 do not go to 50%. Because for some reason, again, the bad game design here is they want to reward the easier option to do. That is what we don't like. That's why it's even a topic to begin with. If it was perfect and good, then nobody would say anything about it.
But nobody's saying about it except you. Like, I don't remember the last time anybody was complaining about it. I can tell you what.
And I'm very surprised that no one has ever said anything about upblock until me. That's the crazy part. It took 3 years later for me to come around to make people realize, hey man, upblock is probably a pretty bad mechanic. That should not come back.
Well, Tekken Master, and I spoke about it earlier too. Tekken Master said it was terrible.
Oh, so it wasn't only me that came 3 years later. So other people did have gripes with it. Because they
Most
made it
Tekken
seem like it was an issue until I came around and started complaining about it.
I'm not gonna be like, oh, Rio's the only one who's mentioned something about them. I think obviously that's not what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of people could say a lot of stuff about this game, and not necessarily, like about the overall product. I'm not specifically referring to, the gameplay. Usually, Uplock is not one of them. Like, it just isn't. People usually, again, you mentioned the walk back, recharge type meta. Yeah, that's something people have mentioned, right? They're like, oh, look at this turtling. Where's the action, right? That's something people have complained about. Not so much recently, but again, like early versions, armor, obviously with Kung Lao and Tanya, that was huge. Vortex characters, stuff like Cyrax, Ghostface, Homelander to a lesser extent. That's usually what people complain about this game. I just haven't heard this huge movement about Uplock. It's like, yeah, they finally added good anti-airs. You may not like it. You prefer MK9 jabs, which is fine, but like, this is a good solution.
But
for
the
what
thing
it
is, it's not even a good anti-air because then people start empty jumping like rabbits and it doesn't stop the jumping situation. It just makes them jump into empty jumps. It's just a very bad designed anti-air.
I beg to differ. I think it's the best anti.
You haven't played people in Combat League that do empty jumps everywhere and start jumping like crazy, and it's like a slugfest. That does not feel like fun gameplay where people don't know what to do because there's certain mechanics in place that are there to be a band-aid, and then both the players don't even know what to do. They're like, I want to jump in, but I don't know if he's good enough to anti-air, but he made up block, so let me do an empty jump. But then you're sitting there not doing anything, and it has these weird like issues where players are colliding, but they're both not doing anything. It's just awkward. One person standing there that didn't commit to up block, other person's empty jumping. I'm like, I've never seen a fighting game where you see two players not knowing what to do in a basic spot, like one person jumped at them. It just looks hideous. And this is the problem when you have banded mechanics like that. It makes people look like idiots when they shouldn't.
First of all, yes, I have played Combat League. I have close to 2,300 hours in this game. Most of it come from Combat League. Yes, of course, people empty jump. I just don't think this is an issue. I mean, jumping in this game, in comparison to like Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat X, especially Injustice 1.
You're a warrior, man. That's all I can say.
What's that?
In that kind of hours, man, you're a warrior, dude.
I am. So the point I'm trying to make is that like it's easily the best anti-air system. Again, you may not like it, but that's your prerogative.
I entirely disagree with it being the best anti-air system we've ever had.
But no, it's not necessarily like whether you like it or not. I'm saying, can it anti-air? It can. Like, that's what it does.
It doesn't, though. When they empty jump, it does not anti-air. People are still jumping at you.
It's a mind game like that.
That's a bad anti-air mechanic then. It's the whole purpose is to stop people from jumping. Well, it's not doing that.
Well, usually the reason it works very well is the guy who's jumping on you, there's a mind game, but he is at an inherent disadvantage.
There's a mind game at both aspects, which is why it's annoying.
Well, again, this game has that mechanic, and the person jumping it is at an inherent disadvantage because if your opponent jumps, they're going to need a lot of damage. And this game, thank goodness, has a very high damage output, unlike Mortal Kombat 11, which I like because that, to use your words, scrubs the scrubby, stuff like non-stop jumping. Nobody cares about flawless block because Some of them are super weak in MK11. They have horrible hitboxes, um, and the damage is very limited, right? Afterwards, anyway. In this game, when you up block, you bet your ass the other guy's gonna eat like at least 30% from at least, but probably up to like 40, maybe even 50 if you have fatal blow. So they're gonna think twice about jumping. Now, can they empty jump
Well, I
and
mean,
like?
they're not because if they land a jump in or go into something, you're also eating 50, which you're leaving out. It's not just one side of the defensive is getting 50. Both sides are getting 50 for any touch, basically.
And the best cameras in the game, which what people use, like Striker, grenades hit you out of the air and juggle you, and it's an ambush. Um, Sonya has like a square wave. That's an anti-air. Like the game doesn't have a jumping problem. It's just this is complete myth. You may not like the way the system works, but that's a separate
Nobody
discussion.
said MK1 has a jumping problem. What I was saying, I thought the argument was up block as a mechanic is scrubby.
I don't know. I don't care if it's scrubby. That to me is irrelevant. Does it work? It does. That's what I care about. Tom, what's your
But
stand?
it doesn't work all the time because, again, you said the purpose is stop jumping. People still jump at you just into empty jumps.
Yeah, okay, then it sounds like you don't want to have jumping in fighting games. Then go play karate, champ. I don't know.
I think it's unnecessary. and just my. So there's 2 points here. Dave's point is, does it do what it's supposed to do and stop jumping? Yes, right. So Dave, I think Dave's point is you may have a preference that you don't like it, which is fine, but it does what it's supposed to do. I personally, my preference is I don't like it. I think there's something wrong with a regular anti-air. I think it adds another layer of get out of jail free. Because the reason why uplock is there is because of the jump-ins being so difficult to traditionally anti-air. I think that's the issue. The reason that uplock even exists is it's like, well, I got it. Traditional anti-airs are tough because of the obnoxious collision on the jump-ins. So we'll give you uplock. I think that was a terrible way to deal with it. The fact that it's even necessary is the problem, not that it's there in general. And Mr. AP Chem, I saw him comment about MK9. The jump punches are anti-airable, but the early jump kicks are. Those are called the what do we call them? Neck kicks, Rio? What apple kicks, right? Because we would do that like the kick you in the head like it was an apple when I had you in the corner, like the sharp jump kick, I guess. The difference is in MK9, if you were to do a sharp early jump kick, if they ducked, you would completely miss them. Same with a jump punch. If you do the jump punch or kick early, so as to throw off their anti-air timing, if they just remain ducking, you will completely miss them, and it's an easy combo for them. The difference is now you can do that and still hit them because how massive your collision is and how long the active frames are. So I don't think he quite understands that with MK9. Because if I were to do the jump kick he's talking about, the reason why I did it is you were in the corner and there was an ice clone there, so you couldn't punish me if you just stayed crouching, and you couldn't down two me out of it or anything like that. It was there specifically to jump kick you onto the clone if you tried to jab me out of the air. So, but in other scenarios, like another character's open space or whatever, you can't do that. So I just wanted to, because I saw his comment there in the last podcast. But the fact that up block is even needed in the first place is the problem. I mean, Dave's point of view is, well, it was needed because people complained about how bad the jump-ins were in others games. The jump-ins are a little better, but still some of that problem still exists. So here's the block. This way you can deal with it. I think that's Dave's point, as opposed to Dave's not arguing preference. He's arguing it functions to do what people want it to happen when people jump in.
Correct. And there's also stuff like with calling it like a jumping three, it's essentially it's even worse than Mortal Kombat X. Remember like the old Quan Chi jumping one, the old Kotal Khan jumping one? Literally like they extend their hand, their body is back, right? Like it was literally impossible to anti-air unless you had armor, right? Conan has that and then some. The reason it's not broken and annoying is because, yeah, I mean you could do it like, and you can maybe get a combo if you hit me. But if I do my up lock, I'm gonna do 40% on you easily with all my characters. So that's the reason it's a non-issue. Like, and the move still gets to be good. And uh, you know, maybe you can jump, with a different or empty jump, jump with a different attack, right? Like to bait the enter. That's a good system. So there's a mind game. Yeah, you can still have strong moves like that. And again, same thing against Mintara, right? She's a dive kick that's safe. It would be incredibly annoying to deal with if it were not for up lock. Same thing with Peacemaker's elbow drop, or uh, even to a lesser extent, Sub Zero's dive kick. So that mechanic, I think they realized, crap, like the anti-air system is insufficient, even with jabs. So we need to add something else, and I think they did a good job. Ria, your response?
Um, my response is the reason why I don't like up block is because it's very easy to do and very rewarding. And when people do it, all I do is empty jump on them, so they're not technically stopping me from jumping. They're just hoping I do a jump kick.
I don't know what to tell you. I think the system works. I know you want the. I assume you want the ultimate and MK9 jabs back. I assume, is that your preference?
Well, I mean, from K1, I don't want anything. I'm talking more about the next MK game. This game could stay with up block and the way it plays.
I understand, but I'm talking about like your preference. Like you would like the ultimate and MK9 wake up. I'm sorry, entire system. Is that correct?
What is the answer system in UMK3?
Jab to anti, you usually do jabs or uppercut, don't you?
You can, yes, but in my opinion, what they should do is they should make every character have their unique anti-air. Not just one character does everything the same, which is another problem with up block, because it makes everything very generic across the board. How do you up block with? How do you anti-air with Omni-Man? Oh, you up block. Oh, okay. Well, how do you anti-air with this character? Up block. What about Ermac? Up block. It's just makes the game feel a lot worse than it should be, in my opinion.
I don't understand the logic, but you think Third Strike is a good game because of the parry system. When everybody gets around
It
fireballs.
takes skill to do parries and Third Strike. In MK1, if you want to compare it to the parry and Third Strike, in MK1 you hold the block and you tap up. There's no crazy timing required. Also, you don't even have to guess what jump in they're doing, whereas in Third Strike you have to guess. Are they going for a high attack? Or are they going for a low attack? Two different parries.
I just feel like in all my years talking to you, you have like very specific requirements for a fighting game to be, in your opinion, from your perspective, not to be scrubby.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, me not enjoying the way up block is in this game is super specific and advanced as to the reason why I don't like it. The best way to put it is it's just a very bad mechanic, super easy to do. It's a real match, and it's very rewarding for really no reason.
No, I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be up block. I feel like, I've seen your
the
streams.
topic is up block though.
No, fair enough, but it doesn't have to be. I've seen you stream for MK1, and all you do is complain. I mean, you have called everything about the game scrubby. You said maybe like a couple of things, like you think armor scrubby, you think cameos are scrubby, you think up block is scrubby. If you don't like the game, don't play it. I don't understand. Like
You name three things.
Well, I can name some more. You think certain 50-50s are scrubby, hard to block as well as scrubby. Like, I mean, I can go on and on and on. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but like, I think at some point you have called literally everything about the game scrubby. Like, maybe the game is just not for you. I mean, and that's okay because, like Tom mentioned, it's about preferences. You don't have to like
Not
it.
for me, man. It's not for me.
Well, I know,
Not
and
for me.
I think.
Well, look, I'm sorry, I'm not like the other MK1 streamers you watch, where 24/7 they're just praising the game, saying, "Wow, I'm having so much fun. I love this game. Wow, he did this. It's so cool." Yeah, that's when you come to my stream. It's not me just sitting there eating the game's asshole all the time while whatever game
You
I'm
had
playing.
for
I tend to
MK11,
keep it more real about the game I'm playing and express if I think something's good or not. And I know some people don't like that. They rather just hear you talk about how amazing the game is you're playing 24/7, how good it is, and how the person you're playing against is the best player in the world who's doing the best things ever.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying you had
Just
a
for
very
knowledge.
different edit.
Who remembers the time Dave was talking about execution? And it was like, but not like I'm going to be like everyone else. And, oh, the execution and ejaculate every day.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like Rio's all about like I don't know if the game has some kind of arbitrary execution requirements that nobody actually understands.
I'm just saying, my
Uh,
stream is different from other people's stream. You go to other people's
is that what he said?
No, Discord got him.
Oh yeah. Hold on, let me let him know in the comments.
Yo, can you hear me? Hello, sorry about that. I have my
Yeah,
controller plugged
yeah, yeah.
in. It desynced, and when it does that, my audio goes off.
Oh
But what
yeah,
I'm
trust me, I
saying
know all
is,
about. Go ahead.
people stream, you go to their streams, and they get hit by an up block, and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh my god, what an amazing player just played against! He did the crazy impossible." To me, well, usually when I see an up block or I go to up block and then they empty jump, it makes me annoyed because I feel like in fighting games where you get to the aspect of are you going to anti-air or not, that's already a mind game to begin with in neutral. You don't know if they're going to jump or not. Me thinking you're going to jump, I'm already conceding doing all these other things in neutral because I think you're going to do something. And then when I call your bluff and you finally do it, it's like, damn, he jumped. But wait a minute, it's not over yet. Now I have to guess another mind game. Should I up block or should I not? Should I jab or should I not? Because he may land to go for empty into whatever cameo or not. So it's like, at what point, like, do we need to add in 3 different mind game, like, in to interact just because somebody decided to hold up on the controller? That to me is like a little overkill.
I mean, I don't know what to tell. Guys, yeah, jumping is strong in certain fighting games, depending on the character. Right? If you play Cammy in Street Fighter 6, you have to question your uh, anti-air depending
Right,
on
but
your
she
jump.
makes sense. She makes sense why she makes jumping hard. She has an anti-air. I mean, she has a dive kick, like you said. She's designed
Well,
to do that.
well, if you
You
look at like
jumping at me with any character in this game, it's already a guess. Am I going to uplock? Am I not? Am I going to do like? But these characters don't even have dive kicks. They're just jumping at you.
well, it doesn't have to be a dive kick. For example, Street Fighter 4, Zangief um, has a very short jump arc, so it can be very tricky to know is he gonna neutral. It's literally the same thing. Literally the same thing. Like he can jump at certain ranges if you do a DP, and if it's an empty jump, it's gonna whiff and he gets a lot of damage. If he presses a button which extends his hurt box, well now you will anti-air him. But obviously, he has to kind of like make choices and pick his ranges. This has existed in fighting games for over 30 years.
I understand that. I played
I don't
MK9
know
and
why.
MK9 already had that. You could have just said MK9. I don't know why I went to Street Fighter. MK9 it's characters like Sonya. They would jump at you. You want to anti jab them? It's very risky. They can dive kick you and hit them. You want to know why we didn't complain about that in that game? Because that's her playstyle. It's in her design. She's one of those characters very scary to anti-air. If you try to anti-air jab you, she dive kicks and eats you, and she gets a 50% combo to restand. That's your fault. You should understand the character. And MK1 though, it's different. These characters aren't designed to do that. They're just jumping in the air, empty jumping, because the game wants you to randomly up block or not. Like that's not any creative, and that's the problem you're not understanding. That's why we call it scrubby.
I mean, everything is scrubby nowadays. I understand, but
No, not
guys,
everything, but the up block thing.
I encourage people to watch high level matches. You guys can go to Demon Lobby, Rips Arena, Vape Coach, etc., etc. Watch the games. It's not a jumping game. You may dislike the mechanic, which is fine. I think
nobody's calling the game a jump fest where people are just jumping 20% on MK1. I thought the
hypocrisy
whole
comes-
argument. I thought the whole argument was: is the mechanic scrubby or not? Not is it too broken? Is it impossible to beat? Is it like that's
I
you
don't,
keep venturing into other talking points?
I don't use the word scrubby. That means nothing.
Okay,
to me,
is the move brain dead or not? Do you understand what that means at least?
no, it's not. I think it's a great mechanic. I think it's a great
Okay,
defensive
and
mechanic.
you have the right to your opinion.
Yeah, in an era of fighting games in which defense usually tends to be weak, not just for Mortal Kombat 1, but also for Tekken 8. After they nerfed the armor attacks for Street Fighter 6. Obviously, in cooldown, you can literally be when you're not in cooldown. I'm sorry, like when you're in burnout, you can literally like uh, eat like strings that there's nothing you can do that push you to the corner. Then you do your drive impact, and then you do like a huge combo. So yeah, that's the era we're playing. So thank God there's a good defensive mechanic. You can agree to disagree. We can agree to disagree. Whether it's the ideal anti-air system, and I'm all open ears for what ought to be in the next Injustice or Mortal Kombat game. But I personally like the system because it works.
And why do you not want it to be in the next MK game? That's very interesting. Because as much as you're defending it now and saying it's great,
Well,
this and that.
yeah, I do want it, but I'm
Okay.
open. I'm open ears to like different alternatives. But yeah, I would like to have it in the next game, including Injustice. I think it's a good system.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I feel like they should not have upblock in the next game or Injustice because, again, that would just make the game feel. I know you hate the term, so I'll try not to use it. It makes the game feel very brain dead.
No, I mean, again, I understand you have different expectations, and you prefer the Mortal Kombat 9 and Ultimate anti-air system with the jabs because that's what you usually talk about, which is fine. I don't honestly, I don't even have a problem with those systems either. Uh, I think when anti-air jabs became unpopular was because of Street Fighter 5 because you could do, again, this is not a Mortal Kombat example, but you know you could do like a jab anti-air, and it visually wouldn't even make sense. Like it would anti-air them. It doesn't even, it's like it just looks weird. Again, it's not about visuals. I'm just telling what other people used
Right.
to
Well, it
say.
depends on the anti-air. Like Smoke's standing 2 in MK9, he actually hits the air above him. Other characters don't. So
Yeah.
if they could design them better to look like anti-airs, then that would solve that issue. In
No, absolutely.
MK3,
But
they jab into the air, so it looks like an anti-air.
yeah,
That's all they have to
I
do.
think a lot of
They have to
people.
animate the moves. When you animate an anti-air move, there actually goes a lot more effort into it than you think, because they have to design the move to look like it would hit someone out of the air.
Yeah, but even in MK9, it's kind of universal. It's essentially you either uppercut or you jab, and if you had a great anti-air jab, and that's really what you wanted, like a Smoke, right? Other characters were not, they were more prone to like jumping kicks and stuff. So it was not, but it's still like quote unquote a universal system. I mean, and like you said, if you want to have it different for each character, I'm okay with that. But it's not as easy to create such a diversity without running into balance issues. And some characters maybe shouldn't even have a good anti-air. Like if characters are really strong in footsies, maybe they have a strong fireball, whatever,
But
etc.,
yeah, I
etc.
mean, well, having it down 2 as your anti-air is a bad anti-air, because you get no damage off of it. Just having
Yeah.
a consistent anti-air doesn't mean you have a good anti-air all of a sudden. You also have to factor in
I
the
mean,
damage you get off of it.
true, but it's still like very
Like
consistent.
Noob's anti-air in MK11 was bad, even though it was 100% consistent. It was his up shadow. The reason why it was bad because it just did 7%. No one cared about that. But it was a very good anti-air. Whenever you read people jumping at you, anti-air 100% of the time. It just, you would have to anti-air it like 10 times to win. Cabal would have to land in 2 jump-ins to kill you. So that's why it was not considered a very good anti-air.
No, absolutely, I understand. Trust me, I used Jade and I had similar issues, right? She had an amazing down two. But they're not going to stop jumping because the risk reward is low. However, when you make them really strong, like when they lead into, well, they either do a lot of
and that's what
damage.
I'm saying. I'm not saying every character has a good anti-air, but every character should have the ability to anti-air. Otherwise, that's dumb. However, them having good anti-air or not, in my opinion, should be balanced of what they get off of it, not if they literally cannot anti-air or not.
No, again, I'm okay with that. What I was going to say is that, of course, there's the more damage it does, or if it leads into offense, that's what makes it strong.
Yeah, but
right?
just to go into that point, MK1 also lacks that anti-air depth. Like, there's no characters that are like, oh, these are the characters that have bad anti-airing. Oh, these are the characters that have good anti-airs, low damage. Because, again, the problem that they created for themselves, it's a Band-Aid solution, everybody up-locks, everybody's getting 40-50%. Same across the board.
No, I think that is a fair criticism of the
That's
game.
why it's I mean, sorry, not that word, but that's why it's brain dead.
I mean, I don't think it's brain dead at all. I think it's I think it's a system that there's a mind game. They can empty jump and they can they can bait it. So there's a mind game involved. So I think brain was just like pressing one jab the whole time.
Here's the problem people have though: when they're playing a fighting game and they're already beating you in the mind game aspect and neutral, where they're conceding to do anything, they're letting you have the reins to walk up to them, but you choose to jump, and they already made that read. They don't want to get told again, "Hey man, I know you made the right read again, but now you have to make another read on every character in the game because of up block."
No, again, that's a fair criticism. But at the same time, again, it goes back to what kind of you referenced with Mortal Kombat 11. The risk reward for you jumping is not that good. Like it just isn't. That's the reason why people usually don't jump, because they know if they jump, they're gonna get bodied. And I wish the system had existed in Mortal Kombat 11. It would fix a lot of like Cabal's nonsense.
I mean, it would still
Jackie.
have an issue where a lot of characters don't do that much damage. So even if you uplock them, you do like 23%
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
combo.
that's a fair. That's a great point. But again, the game, that particular game, the damage output should have been double for certain characters. That was a major mistake to like have most of your damage come from like uh, crushing blows for certain characters. I don't like that. What would have made more sense is like make damage very high, and then that will, trust me, when they get by 50, they will stop jumping. They will stop jumping immediately. So the point is I understand not everybody likes the system. I think that's
Right,
fine.
but what I was saying is some characters in the MK11 didn't get a lot of damage off jumping in. That's why many people didn't care.
No, yeah, I
Like it goes
understand.
both ways. It wasn't just if you entered and they weren't really doing that much damage when they landed jumping anyway.
A lot of the top tiers, they were like very very good with the like Cabal was leaping. Joker had that one stand, like one custom move. He would be like, doing his stuff. I know it was obviously not as good as Cabal's, but like, it was just very difficult to stop. On top of a game whose zoning has been decimated, it was just very, very difficult to stop, and I didn't really like it. Tom, any of your thoughts on this? I know we kind of got into the uplock debate again.
Yeah, I don't even know how we got into this again because I heard people in the comments saying they're kind of getting tired of us talking about the same topics every single episode. They're like,
I
how many
know.
episodes do we have to hear about Rio complain about Fatal Blow Scrub? Dave complain about MK11 being bad or this, or I think people are just getting tired of having to listen to the same episode over and over and over. And it'd be great for the next episode we can stop doing that.
Tom, I'll address it. Tom, your thoughts?
I think for the next episode, MK1 is what it is. I mean, so it's. But the reality is, subjectively, no game, or objectively, I guess, no game is good or bad because there's no. The majority of people's opinion is MK1 isn't good or isn't fun. And the minority still like the game and still play it. So it really depends on your point of view if the game is good or bad. There's no factual, most people say MK9 was good. Only a few say it was bad. Does that make it factually good? Well, no. We could point to a myriad of issues, on paper that say, hey, look at this, look at this, look at that. So really, it just comes down to the popular opinion. Always, if the verdict of the game is good or bad, popular opinion likes it. The game has a big crowd. It's remembered fondly. If they don't, it's not remembered well at all. Be remembered as, whatever. So really is no factual in that. So to talk about MK1, is it good or bad? I mean, people are where they are. If, Davis said before, if you don't like it, nothing they do is going to change your mind. And if you do like it, you're going to continue to like it. But I think, there's no MK coming out for a long time. We should talk about, people have asked, hey, talk about some MK9 stuff or MKX stuff or 3D stuff, things like that. Talk about those games, the players, what the scene was like. Because the reality is right now, MK is pretty much a pick'em. A lot of people, MK1 isn't it. And maybe another MK game can resonate with them. And for Mortal Kombat really to do anything over the next few years, some people are going to have to find one of the Mortal Kombat games they like, and the only way they're going to even be interested is hearing the stuff that we already know, which might make them say, hey, you know what? I might want to try that out. I think we should do that in future episodes.
Are you referring to like talking about specific older games, especially the NRS ones?
Yeah, it's a shame, but like, there's not much to talk about with MK1 really.
Or like,
it's not even a shot at the game. It's just like, a lot of the stuff's very generic.
Like MKX, right? Like, you know what I mean? The good, the bad, what was fun, why MKX had such a nuclear launch as far as like how big it was. Why MKX really is the only Mortal Kombat game to successfully blend the majority of the old community with all of the new one. It's the only one that's really done that, which is why it was so big. You know, people have questions. Why is it all 50-50? Well, simple. The geniuses over there thought, hey, you know, UMK3 had run. Let's do that. Now, while I don't defend glitch jabs, I don't think even they knew what glitch jabs were, even though we did at that point. Let's just take traditional run jabs, which actually aren't that bad without, you know, since there wouldn't be glitch jabs, just regular run jabs. Um, Everyone had a universal pressure mechanic. So when they run up to you, they universally pressure. Well, they gave MKX the run, it didn't give you that universal pressure tool. So when you run up to somebody, there's nothing to do. So it was like, we'll just give them all 50-50s. Problem solved. That's kind of how that came about. And myself and Rio Apollo did change a build for us that took some of the 50-50s out. For example, Cassie Cage's 4-3 overhead was now a mid. And the original timer, people don't remember this because they had to patch it. Even when the game launched, the original timer, 1 game second was 3 real-time seconds. They did not want to see a single timeout. So myself and Rio were playing with that timer without the 50-50s, and we couldn't kill each other. So like the time was just, and there was no pressure, and it was really boring. So it was like, you know, with the run mechanic, and because there's really no form of pressure outside of maybe like cancel characters like Liu Kang, Devora, etc., which are few and far between, you kind of have to go with the 50-50s. You know, they want to hear is like stories like that, or about, you know, ESL, why the game was so big, why despite all the 50-50s that people find it so fun, why is it the only game they overhauled ever, especially at a late point in NRS history. It's never been done. Things like that. Why is MKX being picked right now for like TNS? You know, like,
Yeah, it also seems like a lot of people enjoy the final version of MKX.
Did you
I
say
don't
enjoy it?
like that version. That
They
version.
they enjoy the final version of MKX.
Well, see, like, I think that's a complete. Not just by the way, I think there's also some top set stuff. Just not, guys. MKX was as controversial as any game I've ever seen after it was released. So to paint like a picture, hey, everybody likes it. No, like, yeah, there was like an initial honeymoon period, but then like when people kind of realized that the game was 50-50 in armor, people were ruthless, man. Like people were vicious on Test Your Might. Obviously, this was like 10 years ago, so certain social media websites were not as active. At least were not as prominent as Test Your Might was for Mortal Kombat X. It was People were brutal, uh, demanding Paulo be fired. What is this game like? Yeah, some people like it now. It has, but it's a very small scene. I think the reason it's popular is because it's very appealing to watch for the casual, spectator. You really don't have to know much about the game to understand. Well, yeah, this guy's running in and doing mix-ups, and he's winning because he's doing flashy combos. That's the game, like, and that was the reality of the situation. So I don't understand, uh, you know, this mischaracterization. And the same thing with the last patch of the game. A lot of people that I talked to, King Jr., THDB, the people in Ohio, my local scene, they hated the last patch because it removed the only defensive mechanic that the game ever had and ever was going to have, which was the armor. Again, I understand it caused issues, but like, I don't understand some of the stuff that is just not based on reality. Like, Tom just said he didn't like the last patch. I didn't like it either. I think it kind of has nothing to do with top tiers. Chairman was still top tier, very strong, top three. But like, I feel like a lot of the gripes with the game was the fact that like it was super hard. Speaking of the lack of anti-airs, like, oh my god, like it was even worse to an extent the last patch. Once they removed like my armor option, like the up punch, I don't know why that was ever nerfed, but like, dude, what is going on? This fool is just jumping, and have like almost no options. Like, speaking of actual bad anti-airs, in a game that that had nothing to compensate for that, like, I just disagree with these mischaracterization because I was there when all those people were, you know, getting their, torches and trying to put everything on fire because they hated the game so much. Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think I'm doing any revisional history. If I'm wrong, you guys can point it out.
Well, that game was a very controversial game in general, like to your point, right? I mean,
And I think it's the
people
same
had,
with MK. Like I
had
don't mind. Yeah,
mixed feelings. Well, for
yeah.
example, I didn't like the last version of the game, and I saw Unbearable Skill did an all-time player tier list, and they were like, "Who was the GOAT, Ninja Killer or Sonic Fox?" I don't think people realized how the last version was so different. This is why it's so controversial to even put Ninja Killer on Sonic Fox's level. I'm not saying Ninja Killer couldn't do it. We all know he's skilled. He can do anything. He's just that good. But the version we played is not the version these guys are playing. This version came out several months after the final Evo, and only about 3 months before Injustice 2, 4 months before Injustice 2. So basically, it only had one tournament, and that was a small tournament, less than 60 people. This game was not the version competed on. Let me give you some examples. For one, well, we had to deal with pre-patch Alien. No player today even has to know what that is. So when somebody says what Ninja or anybody would have done to Sonic, you would have got Sonic's pre-patch Alien, which doesn't exist anymore. Um, so it's much different. Also, characters like Liu Kang. Liu Kang really couldn't get off the ground in certain matchups. Not really. He could not get off the ground at all. And now Liu Kang always gets up off the ground for free.
Also, he had
Not to
a
mention,
slow down one in that version, so a lot of characters got to do. It was hard for him to take his turn without using armor in the pre-patch version.
yeah, and now, not to mention when so Liu Kang had a 2-bar armored launcher. I think it was 0 on block or +1, whatever, 2 bars,
I don't think it
right?
was a launch. It was just a knockdown. Though. I don't think it was
No,
a
no,
launch.
no, no, it's a launcher. The uh, fly kick into the overhead is a launcher.
Yeah, it calls 3 bars. You do meter fly kick, and then the bike kick, and then the launcher. But you can
I
make
thought
it.
the
You're able
I
to make
No, I
it
thought
two
it was
bars.
2 bars. It's 2 bars.
You can make it 2 bars if you don't EX the flying kick. So that means you don't have armor.
I thought the 2 bar
Okay.
was the one with the Shaolin punch. Wasn't that the 2 bar?
So
I'm sorry, guys, not the 2 bar.
this is
The
only in
two.
Dragonfire. When you do
Oh,
flying kick in
I,
Dragonfire, he has a double fly kick that breaks armor. If you meter
yeah.
burn the double fly kick, he goes into the bike kick, and then you can meter burn the bike kick part at any point of it to go into the overhead flip kick, which is a launcher.
Yeah, I got you. But my point is, a lot of the people have no idea about the armored launcher 55th. Yes, that does. Yeah, you're right. But the thing is, it's just such a different game. And even a character like Katana now, she was always good. But anyone that has a 2-bar armored launcher is still very good because there are no more 1-bar ones. So it's it's
Exactly. Yeah. They
it's
nerfed
still
the game.
really good. And let me tell you this, it possessed Kenshi was mid-tier, and then they got rid of the armored launchers, and without really doing anything to possess Kenshi, he became top tier. The reason is his teleport. So what you could do was anytime Kenshi decided to teleport in neutral, you didn't have to expect it. You could react to it and do an armored launcher. Now, it had to be an armored launcher that wouldn't propel you too far forward. Like Sub-Zero had one because it was a stationary one, right? For example, just there were a few of them that had, like Kung Lao had a ZX spin, things like that. Had to be a stationary one, or near stationary, and you would just take the hit and launch him. Also, whenever he was doing any of his strings, whether he does overhead or low demon, you could do a delayed low block, much like how Scorpion's forward 2 or forward 2 into leg takedown. Doing a delayed low block, since the low hits later, would block the overhead, the low. And then if he says, well, so you're going to respect that and do a delay low block, surprise, bitch, I'm going to teleport like he does today. And you're not going to be able to even get him out of the air because you're doing that. You could do that and then armored launch him on reaction. So literally it shut down any mix up and his continuous pressure. There was no mind game, no mix up there. Simply by removing the armor, like Katana can still do it now for 2 bars, but it's 2 bars. removing just the armored launchers in general just catapulted them up the tier list simply for that. So my problem was the armored launchers were needed to anti-air because the anti-airs were so bad. I'm not a fan of armored launchers or obnoxious armor. It's just the way the game was, unfortunately. And if they were going to do an overhaul, they should have done an overhaul right, as opposed to a, kind of quick fix overhaul.
Exactly, and I would also add like Imposter Shinnok and he had that teleport, right? It comes like from the sky. It was essentially Peacemaker's garbage, except it was a lot better because again they removed most of the armor launchers. There was no up block, uh, and I know what you guys will say. Well, did you guys ask for better anti-airs? What do you think? Of course we did, and they were like every patch you would see like buffed anti-airs reduce the hurt increase the hurt boxes on I don't know jumping attacks, and it never did anything. And besides, like when you have moves like the drop literally from the sky and that are safe and that lead to pressure, like even your jab is not going to do you anything, right? Because just the way that the hitbox works, right? Like, so guys, I'm not like, oh my god, up block. Like the reason I like it is because I don't want to deal with that garbage again, especially after they nerfed armor. Again, we don't want just people doing armor in the neutral. I understand it's annoying, but like that's what we had. That's what we had to deal with. They were never gonna fix that. So I'm like, okay, just keep it in the game then. Like if I'm gonna play the game, just keep it. But they removed those options. The defense became even worse. Anti-airs became worse. Aside from certain lucky characters who got to keep theirs for maybe one additional bar, and it was a nightmare, man. It was not fun to play. Go ahead.
No, I agree. That just, I mean,
And
I had my fun with it as well. Like I can't say that like I was like miserable on it. I did enjoy the game. Um, NRS is like the king of the almost. It's like they get you almost there and then leave you flat.
and Rio made this elaborate thread on Test Your Might. It was like super elaborate, very detailed. Armor does this, armor does that. I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. And of course, NRS did none of it, as I suspect. They did literally zero of it, just like I thought. Right? I was like, they're probably gonna go look at the thread the Rio made, spend probably like 2 hours typing it out, and maybe 2 hours thinking about it beforehand, and they're just gonna say, yeah, just nerf armor, because we're not gonna add all these aspects, and that's exactly what they did, and that's why I was so upset with the last version. And I remember King Jr. came over. I believe this was on a PS4. We literally took out the we never like, but I don't think we took out the hard drive up. Like we played the version with armor because that's the version that we had the most fun with, and it's unfortunate. And again, I don't mean to be completely negative. I think they tried their best to rehaul some of the stuff, and some of the stuff was good. Other was, but others is just like, again, it's exactly like Tom described. Like, guys, just put them removing like armor. Certain offense in the game became better than ever. Like now with Tremor, they're rolling rock, which is +8 on block. That was really never a thing because you were so scared, right? They were going to react on armor. That was all of a sudden, like 1-2, forward 1-2, forward 1-2, rolling up, forward 1-2-1, forward 1-2-1 down. It became better than ever for Tremor, especially when they reduced the startup on his forward one. They made it 6 phrases out of 7. So yeah, a lot of the stuff was a nightmare. Again, that doesn't mean I want the game. I don't know. I cannot watch the game anymore. I still enjoy watching it, and I'm glad that Tampa Never Sleeps has it. But yeah, I dislike the last version. I think it was the worst version of the game, with the exception of those uh your pre-patched Tanyas and aliens and whatever.
Hmm.
Rio, your thoughts?
I mean, to be fair, I feel like as much as you guys don't like the last version of the game, I think it's a lot better than all the versions we had before that. Because I think you guys are, well, I guess you're not forgetting, but there was so much complaints on the first and second year of the game on the previous versions, like by so many. I've never seen a game get complained about so much. That's why I was making some of the threads like Dave was saying. But they tried to really do their best to, I guess, overhaul it. It was the only game we ever got that had an overhaul, and I think it's kind of in a weird way. I guess unfair because they released the last version so late before Injustice 2 came out. A lot of people kind of jumped ship and never gave it a good try. I was actually playing MKX yesterday. I got back into it, and the way people are playing now is pretty crazy. They're actually anti-airing with jabs. They're actually playing footsies and whiff punishing stuff, which is... I never remembered seeing that kind of stuff when I was playing the first years of the game because the game was just, armor launcher and to run up, do this and that. So I think because we haven't really played the final version that much and gave it that much of a try, I think the reason why there's a huge resurgence, a lot of people like MKX now, has to do with how the game is different now, and it's not just armor launcher every 5 seconds in neutral. And maybe that's why there's, why a lot of people are getting back into it. And maybe if we try it again and get back into it, we'll end up enjoying it. Because I never played the last version and gave it much of a try. I kind of jumped ship quickly into Injustice 2.
Yeah, so did I. I'm a bit nostalgic, obviously, for Tremor. I like my little shatter when I had armor. I like my up punch.
When the MKX was so bad in the first and second version, I was so turned off that after I read the patch notes on the last version, I didn't even care to install it and play it much because I was already mentally checked out.
Yeah, the point I was trying to make, I don't mean to be disrespectful to either one of you. I just think that when we say a game was well received, I mean it wasn't really. I mean MK9 guys, people may say the same about MK9. The most complainable things MK9 was not the player one advantage, was not meter drain glitches. It was not. It wasn't any of these glitches that to this day I rant. It was actually the matchups. People were. You had certain people just being toxic, and I was one of them, right? For sure. And people hated fighting Cyrax, people hated fighting Kenshi, people hated fighting Cabal towards the end of the game. That's how most people quit. They couldn't stand those matchups. Because then it became, let's try to talk to Tom, try to get stuff changed because he had close connection at that point to Paulo and Boone. We all we were into politics. That's all. A lot of that was the scene. You try to get your character buffed so you have an advantage. We all kind of did that. And that was a huge aspect of the game. Tom, I mean, am I telling the truth? I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that.
No, that's true. No, you're right.
And to a lesser extent, we did the same thing in Injustice 1, right? We didn't like Scorpion. And I do think it was broken. We all called Tom Tom, you got to get this character fucking had a teleport in a no block, no block button game, and everybody talked. It was dude, we got to get. I'm calling Tom, playing to win is calling Tom. Maybe King, we all go dude, you got to get this change. This is not fun to fight against. And yeah, I mean, I guess those are the dark aspects of those games, but trust me, guys, they all had their controversies, just like Mortal Kombat 1 does right now, and like MK11 did. We don't have to go through that history, right? I think that history is still pretty recent and fresh in people's minds, and the controversies about the universal mechanics to the point that even the players who enjoy the game, who like it, are yeah, the delay wake ups is a disaster. Fatal blows are a disaster. Crushing blows are a disaster. Balance a disaster. So it's. But at the end of the day, you just kind of have to be look, I accept the flaws. I play this game because I like it, and I think that's kind of where we're at, and that's kind of where we're at. Moving into or going into Combo Breaker that's going to have all these games, and I'm looking forward to watching most of them.
I have a question for you guys. Which game of Combo Breaker do you guys think is going to get to have the most hype around it with people watching it?
Probably MKX. Or the last time I did this, there was 9, but this time around, probably X.
Yeah, I think it's between MKX, MK9, and maybe Ultimate.
Why do you guys think that maybe more hype for those games than MK1, which is the newest game out? I'm just curious.
Too much bad word of mouth around it.
Yeah, it's too recent. People already know what the game is. MKX drew very strong numbers for Temper Never Sleeps. I think within 1 week, the game had 50K views, which is crazy. Those are literally Street Fighter 6 numbers. I think a lot of casuals find the game appealing. I think Ultimate is also appealing, aside from certain meta that we don't want to get into. Um, and MK9 just for the nostalgia, like people our generation remember the game fondly, and we can people never mind watching the game, and it's also very appealing to watch. Ria, what do you think?
My answer is I think it's going to be MKX for one reason. I think we're going to see the most hype, biggest showdown match happen offline. If the grand finals is Ninja Killer versus Sonic Fox and MKX, I think the venue is going to explode. It's going to be probably the most anticipated match in probably the last decade. So if that happens, I think that's going to make it be massive. Because they've never played offline in a tournament yet in that game. I remember back then when people... I think Ninja Killer surfaced around MKX when Injustice 2 was out. So people like Sonic and stuff kind of like started playing other stuff. But I'd love to see them actually duke it out in a actual MKX tournament match, which there's no excuses. They both sign up. They're both there to win in this game. And whoever the better player is wins.
I don't know if Sonic
Yeah, but
Fox.
Sonic is also focused on 2XKO. I don't know how much.
Yeah, I don't know.
And this
how
is
much.
not like people will say, Tom, you always say Sonic gets excuses. I mean, he won 2 Evos. I mean, I think Sonic and MKX, you can't be more dominant. He won all 3 Pro Series and
No,
both
I agree.
Evos.
That's why I had him as the best MKX player. But it's just
Yeah,
would be
there's
interesting
no.
to see
I
like the
don't
old
care if
MKX
Ninja or
guard
somebody
versus
else
the new
beats him.
MKX guard. Like in a showdown
Yeah,
match, like
I just-
him versus Ninja Killer would be the hypest
It'll
match
be
that
good
you
for
could possibly
fun,
have.
but again, there will never be a day where people from back then versus people today will play where they're both in practice.
That's true.
You know,
You
probably
can't really do
most
that.
people back in the day. Yeah, it'll never happen. You know, but it'll be good just to see those two play in general, just for the interest to get people's eyes on it for sure.
I don't know if necessarily. I don't even know if Ninja Kill is going to enter. Honestly, like
There's no way Ninja
I
Killer's
don't-
gonna go there and not play. Isn't MKX his favorite MK game? That's like impossible. Why wouldn't he? He has a good chance
Well-
of winning it too.
well, keep in mind he's been playing Tekken a lot. I think he's focusing on Tekken a lot. He won
Yeah,
one.
but I mean, it's possible to play more than one game at the same time.
No, I know. I mean, if anybody could do it, it's him, right? I'm just kind of going by.
I would be surprised if he goes to Combo Breaker and not enter MKX. I feel like he probably has one of the best chances of winning MKX. I'm not saying there's not other people that are killers that are going. There definitely are. But I think a lot of people want to see, like, for example, the match I just said, Sonic Fox vs. Ninja Killer, Grand Finals MKX.
No, I mean, I would love to watch it too. I just don't think that Ninja Killer is going to enter some of these games because I think he's focused on Tekken, and he still plays, but I think those two also had a beef not too long ago. I don't know exactly what was going on. Sonic Fox and Ninja Killer.
Yeah, it was an MKX.
No, it was an MK1. I think Ninja Killer
MK
said some stuff. Yeah, Ninja Killer said
when
some
Ninja
stuff.
Killer said, if your name's not Sonic Fox, they don't care.
Yeah, like they don't
I
care about your feedback. Yeah, so I think that rubs Sonic Fox the wrong way to the extent that there was a team tournament. This was last
Is it
year.
because
like,
MK1 has a lot of like mix-ups and set play in it?
no, dude, it's not about
Well, I mean-
gameplay necessarily.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to
It
say,
was-
well, explain the drama. Like, what was the actual like
Well,
complaint?
the
Like,
exact quote was, if your name's not Sonic Fox, they don't give a fuck what you have to say.
yeah, but like some of the lore behind that. Like, what were they both trying to express before that?
Well, I guess the
it was
criticism.
with Lou
Go ahead,
Streets, an interview with Lou Streets. So Lou Streets did an interview with him, and in the interview, he goes, "If your name's not Sonic Fox, they don't give a fuck about what you have to say." And then he said, like, if Sonic is more so talking about a character's too strong, they're probably going to nerf it, and if he says the character's too weak, they're probably going to buff it, just because Sonic. They
Oh,
don't
I
really
see.
care what anybody else has to say about the game.
Here's the thing, like, I'm not saying Ninja Kill is wrong, but when you look at MKX, they butchered some characters that Sonic was playing when these characters weren't even that good. Like, I'm talking about Aaron Black, got desecrated in MKX. That character was never even top 10, even at his best in the vanilla of the game. He got nerfed so bad that right now in current MKX, I think he's the worst character in the game, with some of the 2 worst variations. He only has 1 decent variation, it's barely playable. So do they really not nerf the characters that Sonic plays? You gotta think about it.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
think
In my humble opinion, I don't think
Because I feel like they only destroyed Aaron Black in MKX because Sonic was winning with him. Otherwise, that character did
I
not need to
think
get
he
nerfed like
was
that.
speaking in the context of MK1.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
see,
You know,
I didn't
obviously he
follow
wasn't
MK1
even.
first tier, so I don't know what characters have been getting nerfed and buffed because of it. I just know in
I mean, I
MKX they
don't.
were definitely nerfing Sonic's characters because they butchered some of them that didn't even need to be nerfed.
I don't think that comment is proper. I think they nerf no matter who's winning. Obviously, Sonic Fox is winning the most, so his character get targeted, whether it's Mortal Kombat One or any other game or Injustice, right? Like, I mean, remember the stuff that Sonic Fox was doing with Captain Cold, and they nerfed Captain Cold. Like, and even though nobody was has ever, aside from Sonic Fox, nobody ever plays with Captain Cold. Nobody even ever used them, right? Like, but they still nerfed him. Same thing with Red Hood. I felt that pain because I was using Red Hood at that time. So I don't think it's accurate to say that they only nerf Sonic Fox's characters. I think they nerfed characters no matter who's winning. Like they nerfed, for example, Predator, right? Because King was winning at that time. So
Yeah, well, they also destroyed Hunter Predator because Sonic Fox, funny enough. That character didn't need to get nerfed that hard.
no, I obviously I agree. But yeah, but anyway, those two like have had some beef. I don't know if they're like on speaking terms, and they may kind of affect. Hey, why should I enter? I don't want to kind of risk losing to this guy. I'm not saying that that's what they're thinking, but you never know, right?
True.
Well, do you guys want to wrap it up here?
Yeah,
Um,
we could wrap it up. Do you guys have any closing statements you want to make?
mm, well, I just want to say, like, let us know what you guys want to talk about. I know Rio and I, we get into our passion and uplock and what's scrubby, what is not debates. Um, let us know what if you want to hear something different. Let us know which guests you may want to be interested in. We bring in.
Yeah, we still
I
have the
would love.
guest that was supposed to be on this episode coming on next. We're
Yeah,
just rescheduling with him.
yeah. So Dab is supposed to be on the next one. Let us know if
Yeah,
whoever
well, I
you
didn't
want.
want to spoil it, but yeah, it's that.
I'm sorry, but like I mean, he didn't show up, so I guess we're allowed to spoil it. Uh, yeah, let us know. What topics you want us to discuss, which games you want us to talk about. Do you want an episode like strictly on Injustice and the lore, behind Justice One and Justice Two? There's like, do you like want us to talk about 3D games a lot? Um, just let us know, Rio.
I agree. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to episode 60. Thank you to Tom and Dave for being on this. It was an enjoyable discussion. And let me know what you guys feel about the topics that we covered. What's your guys' opinion on them? And like Dave said, which topic would you guys like to us cover on next episode? Thank you guys again, and we'll see you in the next episode.